Check, check. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Site Plan Review and Appearance Board for Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Rochelle, when you're ready, if you can please call roll.
Sure. Allison Thomas.
Here.
Stephen Cohen.
Here.
Linda Perdot.
Here.
Annette Gray.
Here.
Carol Perez.
Here.
Benjamin Baffer.
Here.
Dana Adler.
Here. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
Thank you. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Move approval of the Site Plan Review and Appearance Board, June 26th of that agenda.
Thank you.
28.
I'll second.
Thank you. Next,
If I can, Chair.
Sure.
My apologies. If there were going to be a change to the agenda regarding moving something from consent, I think that's when we would have done it. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. That doesn't mean you're approving the consent portion of the agenda, but if there's any adjustments made by the board that you want to move from consent to regular, then I think you do it at that time. So I just want to make sure that we're not anticipating.
no, I've reviewed it. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Any other comments on that from the board?
Who seconded, please?
Ms. Thomas.
Shall I
Okay.
call the roll on that?
Yes,
Are we
please.
ready? Okay. Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Stephen Cohen.
Yes.
Linda Perdot.
Yes.
Annette Gray.
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer.
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. At this point, we swear in anybody who will be speaking before the, next item on the agenda is the meeting minutes from April 26th and May 10th, 2023. I've reviewed them and they appear accurate. Does anyone have any changes to those two meeting minutes? Seeing and hearing none, can someone please make a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval April 26, 2023 minutes.
And May 10th.
We do them separately now?
If you guys don't have any comments on them, you can do them together.
Okay. Move approval April 26th and May 10th, 2023 minutes.
And a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Rochelle, please call roll.
Okay, who's the second? Okay, thank you. Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Stephen Cohen.
Yes.
Linda Perdot.
Yes.
Annette Gray.
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer.
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. At this point, we swear in anybody who will be speaking before the board on any matter regarding public comments or on any agenda item. Please rise and be prepared to be sworn in. And is there anybody in the hallway who maybe you want to bring them in?
Anybody who's going to speak, can you please raise your right hand? Come on in. By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Rochelle. Okay, at this point, if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on any item that is not on the agenda, but is in the purview of the Site Plan Review and Appearance Board, we would welcome your appearance. Seeing and hearing none, I'd like to touch on a few things. Staff is presenting from the table in front of me, and anybody who's speaking to the board, please use the podium on my left. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Can someone please make a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. May I have a second?
Second.
We have Linda and we have Allison.
Thank you.
Oh.
And when you can please call roll.
Okay. Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Perdot,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer,
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. Now I'm going to read through our quasi-judicial rules. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or for a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The city commission, board members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on the number of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. Okay. So now we are going to introduce our first item. Ms. Buse, if you could please enter item A into the record.
If I may, really quickly too, anybody that's here for the consent, could you release them?
Okay, so if the first 4 items, item A, B, C, and D, are part of the consent agenda, you've passed, so if you're here for that, feel free to leave. You're approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so,
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Buse, planner for the City of Delray. This is file number 2023-162, and this is a color change for Hamilton Place, located at 285 Southeast 6th Avenue.
has there been any ex parte communication on this item?
No.
Okay, so the applicant is Mr. Estebanez. Am I saying that right?
Say that again?
Mr. Estebanez?
He's not here, that's the property manager.
You're the,
We're the contractors.
okay. Can you tell me your name and your address for the record, please?
My name is Diego Oliveira. The address for the record, it's 2124 Northwest 22nd Street. That's in Pompano Beach, Florida, 33069.
All right, Mr. Rivera, the floor is yours.
We're here just to request permission to paint the building with a different color. We submitted like all the plans and the colors.
Can
to
you just
guys.
speak into the mic because we're being filmed as well?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We submitted all the colors to the city and the changes to the colors that they are right now and the colors that we were proposing to paint them. And we're here just to get approval to go ahead and process and paint it.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Buse.
Okay, this is agenda item 9A. I did give Rochelle some of the color chips if she wants to pass them around. And so I'll go through those colors really quickly. The main stucco is going to be the snowbound. The window frames and balcony doors, also the snowbound. All horizontal band garage doors is the big spender, and the rafter and metal lights are the castle walk brown, and then dockside blue are the shutters. So this is in the Central Business District, and you have Central Business District on the north, south, and west, and single family to the east, and these are townhomes. This is what they look like right now. They're kind of a cream and a yellow. Here's another picture of them, and this is what they are proposing. The blue's a little hard to see, but that is the shutters. I don't know if the chips give you a better idea. And then the rafters are kind of like here, and these are the railings, and then the body is the snowbound.
Mm-hmm.
And that concludes my presentation.
Good job.
Oh, sorry, it doesn't. These are the findings. And these are these are located very near to the property, and here you can see that these properties do have the lighter colors as well. This is a historic building across the street from them. Florida vernacular usually has more softer color palette. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, Mr. Rivera, do you have any rebuttal? Okay. So, board comments. Let's start with Ms. Perdue.
I like it. I think it's going to be a nice change. It's not gray. So, yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, great.
Mr. Cohen?
I don't have any comments.
Ms. Perez?
I like it. Thank you.
Ms. Gray?
I have no concerns. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
I have no concerns.
Mr. Baffer?
Nothing to add.
I think you did a great job, and it's modern. I love the blue shutters, so thank you. Rochelle, can you please call roll? Oh, we make a motion. Sorry.
I'll move approval of the color change for Hamilton Place 2023-162 located at 285 Southeast 6th Avenue by finding that the request is consistent with the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan.
Second?
Okay, now, Rochelle, can you please call roll?
Sure. Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Perdue,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer,
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. Congratulations, you've been approved.
Thank you for making this so easy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for doing such a lovely job.
Thank you.
Okay. We have the next item from Ms. Buse again.
This is agenda item 9B, and this is Atlantic Crossing. This is Hampton Social, and it's a consideration of an amendment to the master sign program for Atlantic Crossing to accommodate the signage for the tenant, Hampton Social. This is located in this central business district in the commercial core, and there is RM to the north. Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So before we start that, do we have any ex parte communication on this item?
No.
No.
I'm going to step down.
Okay. Okay. Do we need to say why she's stepping down?
If you could just state briefly the reason for your stepping down.
I'm stepping down because I was involved in the project.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Reed,
Yes.
you can make your presentation.
Hi. We're just here, I guess, to get it approved to have the signs on the restaurant.
If you could just let us know, have you been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay. And
I was
could
in the
you
back.
State your name for the
Christine
record,
Reed.
please. Your name and address. For the
Christine
record.
Reed, 712 Bunker Avenue, Kissimmee, Florida, 34759.
Thank
FNS
you.
Installations. Is that it? I've never been to one of these before, so excuse me.
That's okay. You're
This is
Doing
my
a great
first one. But no, we were just we submitted for a plan application for a sign package for the Hampton Social, and we're here to see if the signage met code and was approved to be installed.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Ms. Buse for the city, please.
Okay, it is file number 2023-142. Again, this is in the Central Business District. You have RM to the north, and it's surrounded southeast and west by CBD. This is, the use is restaurant, office, retail, and residential. These are the requirements for master sign program. I believe, were all of you here for the original program?
I think I was.
Okay. And these are the ecstatic qualifications. If you remember correctly, when when Atlantic Crossing came in, they came back twice because the Hampton Social signs were too large and they needed to regroup. And so once they figured out the kind of signage they wanted, they're here tonight. The signage has been installed already. with no permits or no prior approval. So the request is one wall sign on the west elevation, which is facing Federal Highway, and it is illuminated channel letters, and it is about 48 square feet. And then they have a projecting sign, which is 14 square feet, and it's very close to where the entrance is. And then, they have awning signs. There are 9 in all. They are 13 square feet on the awnings where their insignia is located on it, and I believe one of them says Hampton Social on it as well. So, to be included with this amendment, Lake Colonial came through permitting. They were approved through the first master sign program, and as they came through permitting, one of their signs did not meet the size requirement that was approved. So they did install the signs. A hold harmless was executed in case the sign was not approved, that they were taking responsibility. So this is just here to show you that it was approved at 6.5, and it is at 8.5 now. It's still very small, but it did not meet the requirements that were in the master sign program. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Okay. Ms. Reed, is there any rebuttal?
Listen, they threw me in the middle of this thing. This was after, I started it way after all this. I didn't even know the signs were up. I just said to him, I was like, I didn't know the signs were up. I thought the awnings were up. So you're saying that one of them hasn't passed, or they're all, we're talking about the awnings?
We're here tonight for the approval of the 9 awnings and the 2 signs,
And-
one wall sign and one projecting sign.
Right. What did you say? Did you say that one was too small, or they were all approved?
None of the awnings have been approved.
Okay. But the signs?
None of the signs have been approved.
Okay.
That's why you're here tonight.
Oh, see, like I said, Boz was supposed to be here. He threw me in the middle of it. I had no idea. I thought everything was fine because on the thing it shows approved, it was denied, then it shows approved, and then it shows review. That's what it says online right now under the permitting.
The permits have not gone through. They were denied because they are not approved through the master sign program.
Okay, so through the master sign program, that's why we're here tonight.
Yes.
So that's what we're trying to do, is get those approved?
Yes.
Okay, that's okay. All right.
Okay, so, any board comments?
Just to make sure, does staff have any cross-examination
I
or
do
rebuttal?
not.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Cohen.
Did you answer public comment?
Yes.
So I'm looking at LDR 467D2 B, scale, design, and location. The only thing that, can you go back to the pictures?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is, and I think we might have mentioned this before, but there are an awful lot of awning insignias all in a row, and I think that's the only comment I have is, seems like a lot of insignias. So that's my only comment.
Okay. All right, Ms. Gray.
Okay. I'm going to need help with staff, from staff at the moment, primarily because they're already up and I'm not sure I want to make that more difficult for the client. I understand that was a faux pas, right? The awnings are currently in compliance, correct?
No.
They are not in
No.
compliance.
I have not received permits for the insignia on the awnings. Awning signage is considered wall signage.
And they exceed the capacity that we allow under the master sign.
No, the sizes are fine. It's they are asking for 9, and that's on every single awning.
Okay. So because the insignia is on 9 awnings, that exceeds the number of, let's say, logos or signage or
No, that's why it's here tonight, for you guys to make that decision. But when they first came through with the master sign program, they did have the signs on all of the awnings at that time, and that was one of the reasons why they were told to regroup. And when they came back for the amendment, Hampton Social was not ready to come through for signage yet, so it was left out.
Okay. So unfortunately, my position right now is that they need to go resolve what we asked them to resolve, reduce the number of awnings and the number of signages that's allowed, and address the difference in the size as well.
Is it the, just to clarify, is it the awning itself or the insignia on the awning?
It's the insignia on the awning. The logo is signage. In our 467, you either have a wall sign, which is either the wall or it could be on an awning. With that said, again, the perimeters of the master sign program allow you to go outside of that as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Thomas.
I echo my colleague, Annette, because I think that if there are issues and then they need to come before you and then come before us, that should have been resolved and should have went through permitting. I think.
I just want to make one comment. So I think when they brought it forward as the full master signage program, Hampton Social opted out of that master signage program. So now they're coming to you and saying, can you fit us, can we put all these signs up and that be part of our master signage program for this property?
And the answer is no.
So,
Go ahead.
so when the original master sign program came in, the creation of the master sign program for Atlantic Crossing, which is phase 1, Hampton Social was included in that. They had a very large projecting sign, and they had all of their logos on their awnings at that time. And so when they came back, it was tabled, and it came, the sign program came back without Hampton Social in it. So it's been, this will be the third time it's here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tabled and came back without Hampton Social because of concerns by the board, given the number of signs and the sizes of the signs.
Of the insignia
we're
on the
back.
sign, not the, not.
Everything, the whole package. And so, you know, as we know, a master sign program is it's not to provide a free-for-all in signage or the amount of signage or the types or sizes of signage, but it's to accommodate multi-tenant development and buildings, so that instead of just having a limitation of one wall sign per street frontage, you can now have 2, because you need one for each tenant, something like that. So, but in this case, we've got multiple wall signs in different variations.
Can we say?
So I just, my thought is, so we tabled it for an issue, and instead of correcting the issue, they came back without this particular tenant not being ready to be addressed, and went ahead and installed everything, and then is now coming back without anything corrected and asking for our feedback. I have it straight, yes?
That's correct.
Okay.
They were removed from the master sign program, went ahead and installed, and they're now asking for approval.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for the clarification.
That's all I have to say. Okay. Mr. Baffer.
So I don't know if I'm asking the same question, but let me give it a shot for staff. Is what has been installed, is that consistent with the master sign program?
That is up for the board to decide. We are bringing it forward to you, and it is up for the board to decide with the aesthetics of it, the size and scale, and the locations. And within a master sign program, you can go above and outside of what 467E which allows you to have one wall sign, one projecting sign there. So a lot of, and out of size. So a lot of people come in and ask for, on they ask for more signage, multi-buildings.
So this is, or this could be in compliance if they're granted permission to go outside of the master sign program.
If it's approved as it's presented, then yes.
So the board, whatever is decided upon, you're establishing those parameters. And so the parameters are that they can have signage on 9 awnings. And this is for any tenant. Okay, Hampton Social could go out and the next one comes in. They would still have the ability to have, if this is approved as is, 9 awning signs at whatever the sizes are on that's being provided, 15 square feet, let's say. Then the next tenant can come in and they can have a wall sign with the same type of configuration and font and square footage with their new sign. So you're establishing the parameters. So if you want to increase the parameters, lessen the parameters, or as proposed, those are your options.
I think I understand.
Okay, so in other words, Ms. Alvarez, you're saying that this would set a precedent or not?
It's not necessarily setting a precedent. You're setting the signage parameters for this tenant as part of the overall master sign program for Atlantic Crossing for this phase.
Okay. And how many other tenants are going to be coming up for master sign program approvals?
This is just phase 1. There's 3 phases of Atlantic Crossing.
Okay. All right. Ms. Perdue.
That was my question. If we approve this, is this going to set a precedence that, well, you approved Hampton Social, therefore we're saying we just want the same thing that you approved for them?
For another tenant?
A total new tenant
Meaning not another tenant, another tenant space.
Yes, tenant
so
coming into a different building.
Let's go to phase 2.
Yeah.
There's a tenant in there. I mean, yeah, they can say, well, you approved this. It looks nice, let's say, and if you think it's okay, then we would like to do the same on this side. So,
but just like on any other property, it's not precedent setting.
Right.
I mean, they can make that argument that you approved it and you liked it on this, but each property is different. So you guys can always make that decision per tenant space.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but when someone does a presentation, generally speaking, what do they bring in?
Certainly.
Oh, you approve this, or this is what's next door. So that's the only thing. And then my other question is, if this was not approved by anybody, they just went out and did it on their own, is that the situation? So they're just winging it?
I think as far as that portion of it, like any other building, you would basically make the decision is, if they hadn't done that, would you have approved the setup that they have now? Things like installing something without a permit are something that are in the code enforcement's world. So code enforcement board can handle that portion of it. But as far as like your decision today, you're looking at it, is this something we would have approved? And if it's not, then you wouldn't approve it today.
All right. For me, I would approve it because I don't find it objectionable. I just don't like the idea that why do we have this board if people are just going to go out and do whatever they feel like and then come and say, oh, will you approve us now? So, and as long as it doesn't set a precedence, I don't think, I don't find it objectionable.
Right. And because they need your approval, the board, if they didn't get approval now, they would have to take it out or code enforcement will go out to them and enforce it, So it's not like they just get away with it unless you approve it, or if you,
so if we say we approve it, code enforcement could still go out and say?
Well, I'm not sure what the status of the code enforcement is. I mean, installing something without a permit, if they've already violated them, then they actually could go forward with a code enforcement violation. But if they haven't and you actually approve it now, they won't get a code enforcement after the approval.
they would just have to complete their permit process. But just as part of the consideration, we've put the aesthetic qualifications on that you have for sign programs. So just to help with the consideration of the amount and the sizes and everything, looking at scale, design, and location. So those might be where you want to look in making your determinations.
Just a clarification, because I'm thinking back to the other restaurant that moving.
Colonial?
The Colonial. And we drastically reduced the number of signs that they originally came through in. So, because my understanding that each logo on each awning is considered signage. So I'm not sure who was here, but I remember being part of that conversation, so I can speak for myself. We felt it was excessive, and we had them drastically reduce the number of signs and signs. We also asked them to reduce the Hampton social sign, and okay, notwithstanding, they reduced that sign, but added 9 more.
That's
Okay.
what it looks like,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So I feel like the renderings, first of all, we don't like when things move forward without our approval, obviously, because I think Ms. Purdue said it best, where she said, what's the point of having a board if you're going to do things on your own? So, but having said that, I don't object to the overall aesthetics of it. I feel like the renderings don't do it justice to actually being there. I think it's a large, white, flat building. I do remember going over the awnings with the applicant. I think I recall that it wasn't just the insignia. They had like the name on some and the insignia on others, and it was just very busy. And at the very least, what exists now is purely the insignia, so I don't feel it's as offensive. I think the sign is the right design, scale, and location. So, from a business standpoint, I personally would leave it alone. I'm a little confused about the Le Colonial sign. It wasn't clear to me in the application. Can you just go over that really quickly, Ms.
Sure.
Bruce?
So, when this was approved through the master sign program, the sign that's circled was approved at I think that says 6.6. Yes. And when they came in through permitting, they were flagged because it did not meet the perimeters of what was set in the master sign program, which was 6.6. It came in at 8.5. The one that is not circled did meet code, and everything went through with that one. So at the time, we had the applicant do a hold harmless, and the next time that the master sign program was amended, it would be on for approval. And with the hold harmless, the applicant understands that if it's not approved, that they have to remove it and abide by the approved 6.6.
See, again, the rendering, it's difficult because you have that large fountain that's in the middle, and I mean, aesthetically, when I go by it, it seems fine to me. It's not offensive at all, so I don't mind it. But I'm wondering, I'm trying to take the temperature of the board to see if we want to move with direction, or can we just take the temperature and see how everyone's feeling without placing a motion or a vote right now?
If I were to vote no, I'd probably vote a no.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with this one, but I do with the amount of awnings that have the logo.
I'm just not in favor of it.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it. I'd vote yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we look at, because I'm trying to base this on the actual code, but scale, design, and location, I think there's too many insignia It's just too much. It's too busy. So that's how I'm projecting.
So I think with Kelly can explain it, but if we went for a motion and you'd get a no vote, so I think we should move for direction.
Yeah, so at this point, we normally ask the applicants if you'd prefer to have a continuation with direction. That way the board can give you some direction on what they want as to the signs, and you can bring it back at a later date. Otherwise, the option is that they can just do a motion and you'll find out, which it seems like you've gotten kind of the direction of the board is going to be a no. But that's a final decision from this board, so you could appeal it to the commission. That does still come with a cost of, I think it's $1,000 or something dollars. So that's kind of up to you. I'm not sure, they might be able to tell you around when you could get on a next board hearing if they give you direction, and maybe that could help you make your decision.
Am I allowed to speak or say anything?
Can you introduce yourself,
My
state
name
your
is
name
Marcin
and address?
Izdawa, and I work for Hampton Social. I am here on behalf of the owner. I have a question. If we were to reduce the awnings and remove the material with any of the insignia and just keep the two existing signs that we have, meaning the one that says the Hampton Social so people know actually where they're going, and then the one on the side so people within the mall has anyone actually been there? It's very difficult to find the space. In terms of the logos, we did originally have it say Hampton Social on every awning. We thought that reducing it to just a little symbol, because if you look at the photo in person, it doesn't look as much as what it is now. I can show you on a photo that it's like a tiny little thing. So if we remove the material and redo the awnings, so to speak, but keep the signs as is, would the board find that acceptable?
So you're asking for direction as far as the insignia. You would remove it entirely on the awnings?
It sounds like you're not going to approve it as is. I mean,
Right.
That is what is there currently. It sounds like your direction, but at least the way I'm reading you guys, is that it's too much. We didn't see that as signage, so that's a disagreement. I want to mention that we do these kinds of projects in other states, and we have way more signs. We have giant signs on the top. We have signs on the sides. We have 2 signs is probably the least amount we've had. So we do apologize for offending you guys by putting what you guys consider lots of signs, but we see this as 2 signs.
So, sorry to stop you, but so basically, like what's happening now is they can give you the direction when they make the motion. As long as you're okay with a continuation with direction, then they'll go ahead and tell you kind of what they're looking for to bring it back at the next one. At this point, with the way that you've actually presented it, they couldn't make a decision and tell you right now, like with those awnings changed to blue and white, we'll approve it. They need to actually see it come back to them. So if you guys are okay with a continuation with direction, then they'll actually give you the direction when they make the motion.
Okay, can I ask something, since it's 2 separate things? I mean, I know that you guys see, when I filed for this, I only did the signs. It was brought to my attention, I think you emailed me and said, hey, I drove by and the awnings aren't on your sign application, they're supposed to be on it. I had no idea that the awnings were supposed to be on my application, because nobody brought that to our attention. It was not brought, the people that did the awnings, which was not me, was the awning company. They did not submit for an application.
I understand you might have some more questions, and you're certainly welcome to talk to staff more about it. Right now, I think because it's board discussion, we really just stopped this just to see if you guys are open to a continuation with direction, or you'd rather have a vote.
If they say yeah, if they say no, then you have to take everything down. And you got to start all over. So either we get a continuation
or appeal, right?
Get a continuation.
I guess continuation is the only thing we can go for.
Okay. If you guys could just be kind of clear with your direction when you do the continuation, that way they.
Can I ask a question though? On other situations, we have approved with conditions that those awnings are changed to complete white and with no logos or size or something like that, and then they wouldn't have to come back?
If it's okay with staff, if that's something that you're open to.
Right, that was actually my question, because if they came in without as-built signs and said, hey, and if this was their well, it looks like it's a rendering, but, you know, and this is just what they want to do, not what is actually out there, you would say, okay, we'll approve this, but no awning signs, just the one wall sign and the one projecting sign, and be done with it. Because if for them to come back, I don't know what they would physically bring us or show us for,
Okay.
other than us
Certainly, I
amending the
just-
staff report.
Yeah, I just typically err on
Yeah.
the side of if you can't see it, you don't want to make a decision on it. But
Well, I think
but
that
if
that's been
staff's
approved
okay with
already.
you making
That's not
those
us.
adjustments, that's
And
fine.
I think, you know, because given the as-built awning situation, we would probably need to speak to code enforcement about that, because not only was it installed without a permit, but it's now not even under consideration as part of the sign program either. So we would need to talk to them about that, because that would be the means to make sure that they do comply with the parameters of the master sign program, if that's how it's
Let
approved.
me just pipe in and saying, typically, I would be okay with that suggestion you just made. But I feel a little bit that this applicant is having difficulty with compliance to our code and hearing us at the staff level and at the board level, right?
I think still that part needs to remain with the code enforcement board. As far as compliance, that's not really the purview of this board. You're making the determination. So I think if that's your reason for bringing them
No,
back,
no,
I don't
that-
think that's.
No, that wasn't my intent.
Okay.
My intent was, we cannot design from the dais, so we cannot tell them what to do
Well,
and come back.
I think to a certain extent we can. So it was just suggested, for example, again, taking the temperature, that right now they have the logo on every awning, and there's 9 awnings. What if we said to them, okay, you can only have 5, and the rest have to be white?
Are all of them white except the blue one?
Right.
And then there's no which
Yeah.
ones are
Yeah.
gonna be white, which are gonna have logos. I mean, it just eliminates a whole nother month or two of them having to come
Right,
back. And then
exactly.
we say, yes, it is
Exactly.
okay, you know.
So,
Plain white.
so
So,
plain white, or we say to them, you know, 4 of the 9 awnings have to be plain white, and they can determine
I
which
say
one.
That's where this is going to
well,
be an issue. 'Cause
how
you
many are
want 4,
blue
you
and how
want
many
2.
are white right now?
One, right now,
Just
isn't
one.
it? Just one blue?
But that's just part of the rendering, though. That's
Oh.
not the whole thing.
Yeah, it looks like there's.
All right, so I think
So
maybe
ones on the sides are all
move
white.
with direction. So, I think that we're going to make a motion to move with direction, because
Okay.
it's not clear to us, it's clearly not clear to you what is actually going on there. So I think when you come back, if you can make a determination as to how many awnings, what color, the size of the logo, photographs, more accurate renderings. We're not necessarily opposed completely to having a logo on the awnings, but perhaps not so many, and leave it at
So
that.
you're not telling us how many we can have. You want us to come up with that, and then you will decide if you approve or not.
That's
Is
what
that-
Ms. Gray is saying. We're really not supposed to do
Okay.
that, but it has to be clear to both of us what you're actually asking for.
Okay.
And my only thing I was asking was the signs okay? Because nobody's going back to the actual signs, it's all about the awnings.
I think we're more concerned about the awnings.
Okay, that's
Okay.
what I was, okay.
So we were hoping that you would approve it as is. Since you're not gonna do that, we would like to know what you would like, instead of us proposing and you denying it a second time.
So I think, just to be clear, we are fine with the number of awnings as they stand. We are not fine with the logo on every single awning.
And just because I had a lot to say, and I think I hear my board members, I think, and I can't speak for my board members, however, the awnings without the logos except the blue one would be
Yeah.
my direction, and the 2 signs that you proposed.
Okay.
That would be the direction, so I don't know.
No,
Other board members
agree.
don't
I
mind
agree.
more logos,
Right.
okay? So, you'll have
No,
to.
I agree with. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
So if
Can we
we
then-
agree to
can we
that,
do
to
a
make
motion then
everything
and say
white
that's
and
what
just
we're-
have the
we
blue with
want?
the logo on it and the signs
They don't even
stay,
know how
can
many
you approve it
blue
that
they
way
have.
then?
They don't know how many blue
They
versus
don't.
white.
If you guys all agree to that it's just the one blue and
All white?
all white, and all the other signage is fine, then I think you could approve it today with that
Can you tell us for
condition.
sure
I
how
would
many,
do that.
how many are blue and how many are white?
Just the one blue, right?
There's one blue one?
Yeah, there's the
Okay.
one blue one, and then
Okay.
the rest are white, and they all
So
have
there's
logos.
8 white and 1
blue.
Yes.
Okay, so then we can probably move to approve.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right,
that's
so
great.
if someone would please like to make a motion to explain that.
We compromised. We
Okay.
got there.
So one blue logo, all the white awnings are just plain, and then the signs that are protruding
good.
and on the thing are perfect.
Right.
Good to go.
All right,
Okay.
so who wants to make a motion?
I'll try.
Go for it.
All right, I move to approve the wall signage and the hanging sign as is. The awnings are to be one blue with a logo. All the others will be solid white with no logos.
That's it.
Okay?
Is there a second? And then I'm just gonna make
I'll
one
second
comment.
it for that.
Okay. Do you guys need them to mention the
Item
bar
number.
sign?
It should be included in, I think now, since if they would have approved the entire thing, it would have been approved automatically. But since it's kind of pieced, I think you should probably put it into the,
And what sign was that one?
it was the Lake Colonial.
Oh.
The
And-
bar part over the lake. Colonial.
All right. And including approving the La Colonial sign on the west side of the building.
Perfect. Yeah.
Second again?
Sure.
Okay, second.
Thanks.
Okay. Rochelle, could you please make a motion when you're ready? I mean, we'll call roll when you're ready. Sorry.
Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Perdue,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez stepped down, Benjamin Baffer,
No.
Dana Adler.
Yes. Okay.
Vote is 5-1.
All right, you've been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So sorry for all the
Thank
mess.
you for your time. I apologize for not doing it the right way the first time.
You guys have a great
All
evening. Happy 4th of July.
Thanks, you too. Thank you, Ms. Buse. All right. So now we have application C. Ms. Howells, if you can enter the item into the record, please.
Good evening. I'd like to enter the file number 2023-125.
Okay. And has there been any ex parte communication on this item?
No.
No.
All right. Mr. Seymour, if you would please like to make your application. Thank you.
Sure, I have a short presentation. I mean, short.
Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
I will. For the record, Brian Seymour, I'm attorney with Gunster, 777 South Flagler Drive, West Palm Beach, Florida. We are the agent for the applicant on this. With me tonight is our planner, John Roach, and one of the applicant's representatives, Kelly Schoaf. It's pretty straightforward and simple. You've all seen the staff report. It's really an upgrade and redo of the Seagate Country Club golf course. This is the property. As you can see, it's generally along Atlantic and Military. It's been there for a very long time, since the 70s. When the original course was construction, the current property owner purchased the property in 2012. There was a facelift done about 10 years ago. There is a new golf course management. There were some issues with the previous management, and the owner got rid of them. And Turnberry now manages the course, the club, and all of the Seagate operations. And in 2021, renowned architect Mr. Rogers looked and was hired to revise the program and upgrade the golf course. It is all landscape or below ground. It's all within the existing boundaries of the golf course. It's pretty straightforward. There's some irrigation pumps being redone and replaced. Retaining walls are being fixed up. Stormwater management to increase capacity. There's a little bit of a lake increase. Landscape upgrades. Again, everything within what's already there. We're not modifying any right-of-ways, cart paths, lighting, none of that being done. Is about a $12 million project that we're looking to invest here in the city of Delray Beach. You can see some of what is being done here, just a sample of what we're asking about. We're reconfiguring some tee boxes. You can see that's where the extended lake area I had mentioned, and reconfiguring some fairways, greens, and bunkers. Again, make for a better golf experience for the members of the country club. There's no impact beyond the property. It is all landscape. We are adding some trees back as well. We do meet all the requirements. This is just the checklist that I always do, that checks the boxes, if you will, relative to the code. With that, we would appreciate an approval this evening.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard for the city.
Good evening. Thank you again, board members. Alexia Howell for the senior planner. Before you is agenda 9, item 9C. It is the Seagate Country Club at Hamlet Golf Course for a Class 2 site plan modification. The subject property is about 134 acres located south of West Atlantic Avenue between Homewood Boulevard and South Military Trail. It is a residential development with a semi-private 18-hole golf course. And specifically the golf course has a land use of open space recreational and a land use designation of open space. The overall development has an extensive history of land use actions. Within the last years, several site plan modifications were approved by the Site Plan and Appearance Board, including installation of landscape materials within common area, construction of a new guardhouse, installation of masonry wall, and associated landscaping. In 1973, the Joe Lee designed 18-hole golf course and surrounding residential development opened. It was once a private club called the Hamlet, and in 2012, the subject property was acquired by the Seagate Hotel and renamed. It is now a semi-private club and part of the Seagate Hotel amenity. And in 2001, the property owners retained golf course architect Drew Rogers and his firm to update the golf course. And so the reason the application is here before the board is because this is a modification to a previously approved site plan. And this is a request for a Class 2 site plan modification and landscape plan for the Seagate Country Club to upgrade the 18-hole golf course. The overall proposal is minor. We have removal of pavers and cart paths and bunkers. This is the demolition plan for holes 1 through about 6. This is the other demo plan, which is removal of the pavers, some cart path, and some bunkers. And then the other proposal is the reconfiguration of the cart path and bunkers, greens, and tees. So it's just reorientating some cart path to make it more efficient, some bunkers, greens, and tees as explained by the applicant. And again, here is the configurations for the other holes. We also have a proposal for some lake area expansions here. You'll see in the darker purple, those are the expansion areas. And again, you'll see closer to hole 15, you can see that purple being expanded. The other part of the proposal is the removal of invasive species. In 2022, there were also removal of trees and palms without a permit. So this is also before you for the removal of trees without a permit. And in addition to that, they have mitigated for that through this application process, so everything is replaced for whatever was removed. On top of that, they are also adding new trees throughout the site. So not only that they removed and replaced it, but they're adding more trees to the site. And this is the proposal they have today. You have the required findings. So as part of the site plan review analysis, LDR section 2.45 G1C requires board action to a modification of a site plan. However, no review of performance standards or formal findings are required for a Class 2 modification. And as part of a landscape review, LDR section 2.45H5 requires the approving body shall make a finding with respect to the proposed plan's relationship to the following: A, objectives of landscape code section 4.6.16, and B, site and landscape design standards. Overall, the proposed landscape plan is consistent with LDR section 4.16 landscape regulations and 4619 tree preservation, protection, enforcement, and maintenance. With that, we have board options. We have move for approval, move approval as amended. We have move for a denial, and move to continue with direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Mr. Seymour, is there any rebuttal?
We like option 1.
All right, board comments. Appropriately, we're going to start with Ms. Perez.
I reviewed the plans, and they have taken care of all their mitigation, as staff has determined. I was curious if they're doing any shrubbery planting or any littoral planting at the lakes. Is that
I'm going to let Ms. Schoaf answer that question. She has the plan details much more than I.
Ms. Schoaf, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Sure thing. Good evening, Kelly Schoaf, for the record, project manager at the Seagate Golf Club renovation, address 518 26th Street, West Palm Beach. Good evening, and thank you for considering us this evening.
Sorry, have you been sworn in? I just
I
want to
have
make
been.
sure. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so much. Continue.
To answer your question, we have very minor shrubbery. The majority of the landscape is a lot of dirt movement to reshape the course, majority of trees, and then there's some small shrubbery along the walls, some clusia to get some ground cover, but primarily the landscape plan covers tree removal and replacement.
okay? Yeah, I mean, I see that on your plant list too. I just thought it's if you're reshaping lakes, it's kind of nice to add a little littoral planting to them. But I'm fine with your project. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Gray.
I have no concerns.
Ms. Thomas.
As a golfer, I understand the importance of updating and rearranging, or, sprucing it up to get either the board golfers updated or bring other people back in, and I see nothing wrong with it, and congratulations on the changes.
Mr. Baffer.
No comments.
Okay. Ms. Perdue.
I think it looks good. I agree.
All right,
No,
Mr.
no
Cohen.
comments.
All right. Good. So, thank you for investing in Delray Beach. We really appreciate it. I'd like to ask my board for a motion, please.
I'll move approval of the Class 2 site plan modification and landscape plan 2023-125 for Seagate Country Club Golf Course located at 3600 Hamlet Drive, by finding that the request is consistent with the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Second.
I think Ms. Gray.
Okay. Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Perdue,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer,
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. Congratulations, you've been approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much,
Thank
and just
you.
wanted to say a special thank you to your staff. They've been working very closely with us, so thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, they're terrific. Thank you so much. Okay, we're at item D. Mr. Godonic, when you're ready, if you can enter the item into the record.
Good evening, board members. Julian Godanic, senior planner. I'd like to enter into the record at this time file number 2022-268 is a recommendation for a waiver request and an alternative architectural design style for a class 3 at 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue, and I will turn it over to the applicant at this time.
Has there been any ex parte communication on this item?
I
Yes.
just had a couple questions asked, that's all.
I spoke to Jeff Costello.
Yes, I spoke to Mr. Costello as well. You spoke to Mr. Costello as well?
Briefly.
Okay, terrific.
I didn't get sworn in.
Oh, okay. Rochelle, could you please swear the applicants in?
If there's anybody else that's going to speak that hasn't been sworn in, if you stand up too and raise your right hand.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay,
evening,
Mr.
Board.
Costello.
Hello.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Jeff Costello, JC Planning Solutions, 981 Delray Lakes Drive, Delray Beach. Here representing Big B Investments for the project at 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue in Delray Beach. Here's the location map. Oh, with me tonight too, I forgot. There's the client is here, Mr. Monticello, our architect, and our attorney, Neil Schiller. The location is 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue, just north of 3rd Street in the Pineapple Grove Arts District, just north of 3rd and 3rd, west of the Arts Warehouse. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the area. The property itself is in need of renovation. This is the existing property, the front facing 3rd Avenue, and the rear. The building itself currently is non-conforming with the rear setback. It has a 7-foot rear setback where that projection, with that covered area. These surrounding properties, north on 3rd Avenue to the north, newly constructed buildings, about 3 stories. And then also to the south, of course, is 3rd and 3rd, 1 story. A lot of improvements happening within the area. Recently completed improvements along 3rd Avenue. And to the east is the Arts Warehouse, and west the existing properties. That property there is actually been approved on the west side for a renovation, and that was before you not too long ago. The proposal tonight is just for waivers. So this is for the waiver to the rear setback involving this conversion of use from an office to restaurant. It includes a rooftop terrace. So the waiver to the rear setback highlighted on the overhead is for the staircase to allow a 5-foot rear setback. This project is dedicating 5 feet of right-of-way along 3rd Avenue. There's a portion of the building that's being reduced to accommodate ADA compliance up front. There it is. That area there, right-of-way dedication. And so basically this here is the area where we're looking for the waiver. And then alternately, and Steve will present a request for a change, modification or an alternative architectural style in the CBD. This just here is a little the floor plans, life safety plans, just briefly, just so you get an idea, the context of the renovation, and then with regard to the waiver findings. So with regard to the rear setback, there's 2 sets of findings, 247B5, as well as the CBD 4413, which will be on the next slide. So with regard to this, positive findings can be made with 247B5. The project is sensitive to the character of the area, and it involves an adaptive reuse of an existing 1-story structure. There are existing site constraints. The property is 42 feet wide and is going to be 62 feet deep after the 5-foot right-of-way dedication. The rear of the existing building is currently set back 7 feet. There are modifications, and this includes an open-air staircase abutting the alley. Then the staircase is, of course, to provide egress associated with the rooftop terrace in compliance with Florida Building Code. With regard to 4.4.13 K5B2, the board has based findings within the CBD, and those are the criteria on the screen. This is a secondary street. The waiver is adjacent to the alley in the rear of the property, will not result in any negative inferior pedestrian experience. Will not be incompatible with the surrounding buildings, will not create or erode connectivity, and quality open space is not, civic open space is not an issue. With regard to the alternative architectural style, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Siebert, and he's going to go through briefly in explaining the architectural style proposed of the building.
Mr. Siebert, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Siebert, architect in Boynton Beach, 1010 Gateway Boulevard.
And have you been sworn in?
Excuse me?
Have you been sworn in?
Just now.
Okay. Thank you. Continue.
Actually, we classify the building as masonry modern, which is a style that's allowed here. The challenge to staff was the majority of masonry modern has a flat roof or a level parapet, where we have a pitch here, and the materials are primarily stucco. The stucco might be textured differently, it might look like siding, it might have vertical ribs, it might have different paint, it may even have geometry that changes the direction or visually in the masonry. And the challenge is we have a little bit of a gable roof on the left, which covers the roof deck. And on the front side of that, we're also proposing some vertical siding. So the reason the description says a combination of, the Florida traditional is it's the only other style in Delray that has gable roofs and siding. It really isn't that kind of combination, but the building is in something called the Arts District. We're trying to look artistic. We're trying to be different and trying to create something unique and fun for the new stuff that's happening over there on this block. And in discussing this with staff, they actually suggested we come to, because they couldn't approve it unless it was fully one or fully another, that we could present it to you, and if you guys felt you liked the aesthetics, that we could get a special exception for it. And really that's what we're here for. We're saying this is a sushi bar, it's in the Arts District. We didn't want a box. There's enough boxes over there. We didn't want to play with geometry and the colors. I think this is real play in geometry. I know there's some reference that staff had about the angled line. Well, if we straighten it out and we change the material and we do this, we can call it all masonry modern. We didn't feel like going that way. And that's why we're here today.
Thank you.
Okay, and to conclude, so on the screen are the authority that the board has and a recommendation to the city commission, and with that there's certain an explanation of support that must be made by the board, and up on your screen we do provide the fact that bulleted items as far as why we feel it does comply. Again, this is Pineapple Grove Arts District, eclectic mix of architectural styles, and he's gone through it, so we appreciate your support and thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gatonik for the city, please.
Okay, good evening again, board members. Julian Gadanik, Senior Planner. Agenda item 90, it's for a recommendation to the City Commission for a waiver request to the rear setback, as well as approval of an alternative architectural style, which is in affiliation with the Class 3 site plan application that is concurrently under review with staff. Pending your recommendation, once this moves forward to City Commission and receives final action, then the whole Class 3 will come back to you for final approval of the Class 3 site plan. Excuse me. So a little bit about the property. It's 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue. It is currently a flex office building which has been vacant for a while. The land use is commercial core, and the zoning district is the Central Business District, Railroad Corridor Sub-District. That's an aerial view of the subject property. Property size, it's a little over, it's 0.65 acres. Existing use, again, is 1,800 square feet flex office building. The proposed use is approximately 2,600 square feet of restaurant space. I will also point out, I forgot to mention on the previous slide, there was an in lieu parking request in affiliation with this application that has gone through the process, and the City Commission has approved that. So just as background to you, the parking has already been approved by City Commission as far as in lieu request goes. This is the street looking northward. This is the adjacent property, 3rd and 3rd. The building in question today isn't actually visible in this picture, but I just want to kind of give an example of the neighborhood and the street that it exists on for some context. And then this is the building under question today. Again, the request is a recommendation to the City Commission regarding a CBD waiver reduce the rear setback from 10 feet to 5 foot 1 feet. That's specifically for the rear stairwell. And then implementation of an alternative design style not specified within the CBD design guidelines. Looking at background, I actually just mentioned this, so we'll go ahead and skip. And moving into the waiver. So we're going to zoom into the rear of the site plan. Again, the full site plan will come before you for approval, but this specifically is to approve the reduced setback for the stairwell. They require 10 feet, which is where the building is proposed, but the stairwell is considered an aspect of the structure. It encroaches further than what is allowed. They're proposing a 5 foot 1 inch setback. So this waiver request is to allow the stairwell where it is rather than locate it inside the building in compliance with that 10-foot setback. And then this is just highlighting the specific part of the building that we're referring to. These are the waiver criteria findings. The applicant went over them in detail as well, and they were detailed further in the staff report. And some considerations I just want to point out to you, some questions for food for thought. Does the setback reduction result in a negative visual impact to surrounding properties and the public realm such that the request adversely impacts the surrounding area? Yes or no, that would be for you to determine. Does the setback reduction limit the ability for the site to accommodate requisite functional operations such as loading and unloading, trash pickup, parking, pedestrian connectivity, etc.? Again, the proposed use is a restaurant. There are essential back of house services that need to occur with the restaurant, loading and unloading, trash pickup, etc. Applicants are allowed to use alleyways for temporary loading and unloading. That happens all the time. However, having that additional 5 feet in the rear may allow them to more functionally use it than relying solely on the alley. Again, that could be an issue, could not be. It's up for you to determine. And then lastly, does the setback reduction result in the granting of a special privilege? I guess the applicant could clarify more what the specific reason is that they can't accommodate it within their building footprint. One assumption could be that they need the square footage to get the table number that they need to make it economically viable. That's completely fine, but it's for you to determine whether, if that is their motive and if that's their reason, does that constitute a special privilege, or is there some other justification or reason that would warrant it worthy of approval? Now moving on to the architectural style, as the applicant noted, they're referring to it as a combination of Florida vernacular and masonry modern. I have two examples of the design styles pulled from our city design guidelines, and then I have the elevation of the subject property in the middle for reference between the two. You can kind of see some elements of both design styles pulled and applied to this design. I'm going to go into each one in a bit more detail. So again, this is pulled directly from the design guidelines. Florida vernacular is a style of architecture native to the region, most typically constructed with wooden frame and finished with wood siding. I've underlined some things that are a bit more relevant in my opinion. The origins of the style are adapted from multiple sources, including some other styles common to the region. Gabled roof ends facing the street and simplified classical detailing are common in Florida vernacular. With masonry modern is defined by its rational load-bearing construction technique, has system of punched openings rather than large expansive walls and windows, and there's limited ornamentation. Stucco is the prevailing building finish. However, masonry modern can also use stone and wood detailing. Some code sections that may be relevant to you. One is from the LDRs, one is from the design guidelines. Eclectic combinations of mixing of styles is not permitted. That's for new construction specifically. However, eclectic combinations of architectural styles may be used for civic buildings or for additions or renovations, which is what is occurring now. So they are allowed to ask this question. They are allowed to seek this proposal. However, it is quite clear that the code does discourage combinations of styles, hence why it is prohibited for new construction. It'd be for you to determine if this combination of styles as it applies to an addition on an existing building is meeting the intent of that code and done in such a way where it warrants approval. And then the CBD design guidelines says the city of Delray Beach requires authentic architecture. Buildings should clearly reflect their use and respond to their unique location in the city. applying false architectural elements in an attempt to add interest to the urban experience is not desirable. Simple solutions are preferred to overly complex solutions. Again, that's just some guidance from the design guidelines. Are there other examples of a combination of modern and vernacular? I just wanted to show some examples that illustrate how these styles can be combined. Of course, these are not from South Florida. I'm not aware of any example of a hybrid of these two styles in Delray Beach. Otherwise, I would have shown it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. This would be a novel example of the style. Again, that's not necessarily negative, but I wanted to point out some examples that show how this can be done and what some shared characteristics of these are. In general, the vernacular form is maintained with introduction of modern materials interspersed. There's minimal or simple detailing, and provided interest occurs through texture and material variation, and then they're contextually appropriate. Context would be the neighborhood, the climate, the region. Again, these all happen to be residential, and they happen to be sort of in nature, clearly not in Florida. I didn't pull those to suggest anything. These are the only images I could find. So some considerations regarding the architectural style. Is the blending of two distinct styles preferred to an authentic composition of a recognized style? So again, the code has language that does discourage combinations of styles. Is a good example of a combination preferred to just staying true to one style or the other? Even still, is this design successful in blending elements of both reference styles, which are Florida vernacular and Masonry modern, in a harmonious way? Is the proposed design a well-executed example of a modernized take on Florida vernacular, such that the design elements from the vernacular style, which include material, form, and proportion, are clearly represented, albeit with a modern reframing? Is the proposed design style contextually appropriate for the location where it is located? For example, a redeveloping arts district in coastal South Florida, in a coastal South Florida downtown where traditional regionally appropriate architecture is celebrated, while forward-thinking artistic expression is also encouraged. I tried to summarize what this district is, and I think that does it well. So does this building fit within that context? Are there elements of the design present that detract from the successful and harmonious integration of the two styles? Would the design be improved by reducing the excessive use of contrasting materials on the front facade? For example, and again, as the applicant referenced and the staff report did as well, oversaturation of unstructured detailing, whereas simplicity and rational purposeful detailing are customary aspects of both reference styles. When I went over the design guidelines for both, they did speak towards simplicity, rationality, purposefulness in the design. And again, as the staff report referenced and the applicant did, we do have some suggestions. These are not requirements. I don't want to imply that they have to do this. It's just something that we put forward, and as we've been working with them, that we feel might assist the harmony of the design, and that is reconsideration of the asymmetric design transition line demarcating the wood paneling and the stucco, instead aligning it with the flat roof of the right half of the composition. This would, in our opinion, better accentuate or differentiate the middle from the top of the composition. In the CBD, tripartite compositions are required. You have to have a base, a middle, and a top. They do have that, but we feel that by aligning that line, it better defines it. Again, not a requirement in the sense, but just a suggestion, as well as a reconsideration of the amorphous sort of asymmetric pattern of stucco scoring. We would suggest instead opting for a smooth stucco treatment that, again, harkens back to the simplicity that both vernacular and Masonry modern encourage. Moving forward, your board options for the waiver are to forward a recommendation of approval, recommendation of approval as amended. Sorry, I forgot to put that one up. Recommendation of denial, or you can continue with direction, and then the same apply for the architectural styles. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for all that research you did. We really appreciate it. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Let's see. Mr. Costello, do you have any rebuttal? Okay.
I do. I do. Good evening. Madam Chair.
Can you just state your name and address for the record?
Neil Schiller, Government Law Group, here tonight representing the applicant. Just as far as the waiver for the staircase goes, I think it's important to remember that we're being forced to give up 5 feet in the front of our property for a right-of-way dedication. And in addition to meet ADA requirements, you notice that there's some railways that are existing into the sort of in the front and the entrance into the building. That also created some loss of space. Second point with regard to the waiver is that it's not actual building that we're asking for that incursion of 5 feet. It's just that staircase. That's an open staircase. So it's not like you're going to see 5 feet of stucco or concrete or anything like that into the alleyway. And by the way, it's an alleyway. You're just going to see a staircase. Third point, this is an adaptive reuse of an existing building in the Pineapple Grove Arts District. The property and building itself are both extremely small and clearly has been vacant for a very long time, which is why we're seeking to establish a sushi restaurant at this location, which was previously, I think, an insurance office. Fourth point, not that it has any relation to the criteria, I just think that you should know there's a small business owner trying to start a business in Delray Beach. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as the waiver for the architectural style, obviously our architect is here. He can talk to you about if you want to address any of those points now.
I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, I'm done. That's all about you. I wanted to address the waiver on the 5 feet and remind you of those 5 points. And again, last point, fifth point on both is that you're going to see this project again. It's going to come back to you as part of a Class 3, and the City Commission will have to vote to approve these waivers. So any direction that you could give us would be extremely valuable. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Seibert.
Actually, I don't have any rebuttal on the building vernacular. I thought Julian did an excellent job in his presentation. I think he presented both sides equally for you to make that decision on your own. The comments I had were on the rear stair again. I was going to restate the fact that it's not it is structured to the extent that it's a couple of poles holding up an open steel stair, so it's not solid building we're asking for a reduction for. Another comment that hasn't been brought up is a typical alley is about 14 feet in Delray, that people park on the alley and then they block it when they're doing that temporary. This alley's 25 feet. There's no blocking going on, so if there is a vehicle stopped in the alley, there's still a full open lane going past it. And the other comment was there was suggestion maybe that stair could become internally. If that stair's internal, it's no longer really a rooftop deck. And the reason for that is you're now open into your first floor. So if you're open on the second floor, rain, weather, etc. is coming right in, you literally have to create an enclosed full second floor structure around the top of the stair to accommodate an internal stair, if you know what I'm saying. And when that happens, you're losing square footage on the roof, you're losing square footage down below, and you're taking away that actual feel of going up to an open air rooftop deck. That's all I had, unless you have other questions.
Thank you. All right, so
just real quick, does staff have any cross or rebuttal?
Yeah, no rebuttal. There's just a comment I meant to say in my presentation that I forgot to regarding the alley and the existing conditions of the alley. There are other properties, including the property directly across the alley, that have setbacks that are less than 10 feet. Again, not that necessarily has any relevance, but it is the context of the alley, so I just wanted to point that out as well.
All right, thank you so much. So I know this is sort of untraditional, but I'm going to start because I'm very passionate about this project, and I looked at this quite assiduously because so much in my third year, I'm starting the fourth year on this board, that so much of what we see is masonry, modern, white, gray, white boxes. And one of the reasons I moved to Delray Beach is because there's this whimsy, there's kitsch, there's there's different kinds of colors, which now people are trying to update and make more modern. And there's a big question on, quite frankly, how to do that. And I think that there are codes that we have, and the applicants try to fit their projects within the codes. And it's very easy to build masonry modern. So when I came across this project, I thought, wow, this is something new. And I know the neighborhood. I think it fits in incredibly well. I think it was very well thought out. And let's see, I took some notes. So yeah, it's really a vernacular form, I think one of you said, with modern elements. And it's sort of this breath of fresh air, that it's something new. I love the glass, because it's sort of very Florida. It's indoor, outdoor. And I think it's so interesting that Mr. Gdanek showed all these structures that were not in Florida, but I think this fits in incredibly well in Delray, and it fits in incredibly well for today and for the future. So I'm only one person, but I think that if this does get approved, I think others can look at this as an inspiration for what they could move forward with. And I think the staircase is quite cool in the back, the rooftop. It's a tiny little gem. It's 0.65 acres. I understand the waiver. I have no problem with that. I'm very passionate. I'm very excited about this small business coming in here and doing this. I think it's very exciting. So with all that said, Miss Gray.
Okay, can you please go back to the considerations for the waiver for me, please? The considerations for the waiver. So I'll start by saying that
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I realized that there's a typo. I'm pretty sure the acreage is 0.065.
0.06.
Yeah.
0.065, yeah. So that's
even smaller.
That's so tiny.
Even smaller. So I do concur with our chair. I don't know that I would say it's a good fit for all of Delray Beach, but it's certainly a great fit for the site, the location, the area, the arts district, and have really no concerns about the mixing of the architectural styles. The only thing I would disagree with the architect about is agreeing with staff about the consistency of the treatment on the front and use color. I mean, you're in the arts district with a building that's 4 colors. So I think I would agree a little bit with the architect on that part, but agree with staff in that make that a little bit more consistent and simple. But if you ever could put multiple colors on a building, this is where I think you should do it. Now, the reason why I asked to pull up the considerations, because I have not an issue with the waiver, and legal can jump in here real quick. Not necessarily the waiver itself, but the staircase itself, because it's accessing a rooftop of a restaurant where people will drink and eat and be lively. And so I'm trying to figure out which consideration addresses kind of risk to the patrons.
I think the specific staircase itself will actually come to you as part of the site plan.
Okay.
So you could address that at that point. As far as right now, you're really just looking at it for that, if they can adjust the setback or not due to a staircase.
Okay.
So the actual design of it could be addressed at a later date.
Okay. I appreciate that guidance. I think they might go hand in hand with what I'm thinking at the moment. Where's the ADA compliance at the front? And staff, someone who has a little bit more knowledge about ADA, can you have a particular use at the top of the building that's not ADA accessible?
So I will state what I know to be correct, and then the architect can elaborate. Because the rooftop use area is the same as the ground floor use area,
Okay.
it's not differentiated.
Okay.
They both offer the same service.
Gotcha.
The ground floor is ADA accessible, and the rooftop does not have to be. I believe
Gotcha.
that's correct. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then there's another caveat that less than 3 stories and less than 3,000 square feet per floor does not need to be accessible, provided you can accommodate the same function on another level.
Perfect. So you never know what you don't know, so you'll ask the question. Thank you, I appreciate you. So I will then address the design of the staircase itself when it comes back, but I am okay with the waiver, and I am also okay with the design approach, with the minor exception that I mentioned.
Okay, sorry. I'm looking at the design.
No, that's okay.
All right, Ms. Thomas.
I really love this project. I echo your passion and was so excited to talk about it. I also occasionally ride my bike past there, so I'm glad that the architect stated so much that that is a very wide alley. So much so that I've, at different times of the day, I've ridden my bike and seen somebody loading something while cars are going by. So it doesn't really appear to me to be such a big deal for us to give you that, if my colleagues agree with me. But I also am very excited, and I hope more people do rooftop bars here, or restaurants, or places that we can sit. It's such a beautiful city, and we should be able to appreciate it from all aspects of it. And I also like the architecture. I do think, though, that I agree with the colors could be really phenomenal, especially in that area. But I like what you've done with it, and yeah, I have no problem with either.
All right, Mr. Baffer.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit frustrating and disappointing to think that we're stifling creativity and good design because we can't define something, because it doesn't fit into the box or fit into the mold. I mean, I think that this design, we can't define it, but that doesn't make it bad. I mean, I think it's perfect for the location and for the use. Probably wouldn't want this in my neighborhood, but I think for this application, it's perfect. But I hope we're not stifling creativity by saying you've got to fit into certain boxes. And as far as waivers go, in general, I don't like granting waivers. I think, though, in this case, considering it's specifically for the stair, which is not really the building itself, should be fine. So I think it looks like a great project, a well thought through plan.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Perdue.
I have a couple questions, but I think they'll be answered when we get to the next stage, so I'm going to table those. And I just hope people see this and say we do not have to keep building those ugly boxes that we're putting up all over the city. This is so creative, so interesting. I'm very excited about it too.
Terrific. Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I'm okay with the waiver, and I kind of agree that because we can't necessarily define it, we shouldn't allow it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And again, I'm looking at the code here. It says appropriate architectural styles, eclectic combinations or mixing of styles is not permitted. I don't know. I think maybe we should change that in the code. I think that's good language. So yeah, I'm good. So.
Terrific. All right, Ms. Perez.
I don't have any problem with the waiver, and I just think when this architecture comes before us for approval, right now it just reads so, it was just black and white, and it said color rendering, but I was really confused because I was like, where's the color rendering? But that was it. And I don't think, even if you used grays and blacks, it would probably fit in this neighborhood. But I think the rendering needs to depict that better. I'm confused on the materials that are being used. I didn't really understand, like, what's the sign is on stucco or wood, or, you know, that's the type of thing. I'm like, I just don't understand it yet. But I think that's for next time when you come in.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
if I can comment, really this is just to get the style approved. We have a designer on this project who will use some creative color. The owner has chosen a local Del Rey interior designer who does excellent with colors. I'm excited to see what she's going to present as well. The majority of the exterior is stucco. That stucco with grooves and reglets put in it to create those asymmetrical diagonals that go across. The signage is on a siding panel on the second level.
So it's wood?
And really that's, and somebody made the comment about maybe a little bit of noise from a rooftop bar kind of thing. That's a wall there, so the noise won't be coming out to the street. And there's also a wall on the north side to prevent the noise. So the noise will be going south
No, I'm sorry.
to our client's other property. He'll be making noise for his own.
Hold on, let me just interject. I don't have an issue with noise.
Oh, okay.
I was really alluding to the safety of accessing the staircase, but that's for next time. But I don't want you walking away thinking I have an issue with noise.
And that's more building code driven,
Right,
and it
yeah.
will meet all those codes,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, I don't have an issue with noise.
And also when you come back, I think the perspective where it was taken wasn't, I think it should show like the front door and things like that. Like you're missing like a lot of that elevation that would be important to determine what's going on.
Thank you. Absolutely noted.
All right, so I started, but
You finished.
I get to finish too.
I also have
one
another,
more thing.
I got one more thing.
One more thing.
Because there's not a lot of landscape in front of this building, I think just in front of those windows, if you put a 2-foot planter and just a, a little greenery there would soften that edge
Makes sense.
at least. So that's it.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, I think we have a new style for our code Stybert style. So then it'll be approved, no problem. Okay, could someone please make a motion?
They're separate, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Forward a recommendation of approval for the waiver to LDR section 4.4.13 D2A2 to allow a 5-foot 1-inch rear setback for the property located at 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue, 2022-268 by finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Perez, and a second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thomas, and Rochelle, if you can please call roll.
Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer.
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Linda Perdeau.
Yes.
Nope, I have Allison twice, sorry. Okay, I have it out of order. Stephen Cohen.
Yes.
And Annette Gray.
Yes.
And Dana Adler.
Yes.
Thank you.
You've been approved, thank you.
Good job.
What about the?
We have one more motion. So the
one more
architectural
motion,
design.
right, of course.
And to clarify, it's a recommendation of approval.
Yes, recommendation of approval. Who would like to make
I'll do
the
it.
motion?
Let's see, let's make sure it's the right one. Yep. Forward a recommendation of approval to allow the use of an architectural style that is a combination of Florida vernacular and masonry modern, pursuant to LDR section 4413 F3 for the property located at 319 Northeast 3rd Avenue, 2022-268, by finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen, and the second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gray, and Rochelle, when you can call roll, please.
Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer.
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Linda Perdeau.
Yes.
Stephen Cohen.
Yes.
Annette Gray.
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. All right, thank you. You've been
Thank
approved.
you guys so much.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
All right. We are on application E. Mr. Gedanik, if you can enter the item into the record, please.
Hello again, board members. Julian Gedanik, Senior Planner. I'd like to enter into the record at this time file number 2023-027. It's a Class 4 site plan modification at 2800 through 2812 Florida Boulevard.
All right, has there been any ex parte communication on this item?
No.
I spoke to Jeff Costello.
Yes, I spoke to Jeff Costello as well. All right. All right, Mr. Costello.
Hello again.
Please make your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, board. This property is, this Class 4 site plan modification relates to the property at the southwest corner of Lamette Avenue and Florida Boulevard. A little bit of background for you. It is zoned RM. It has a transitional land use designation, and it's a little over half an acre. You can see surrounding the property is a combination of, oops, let me go back. So the background, so this project was approved in 2021. That's the elevation of the 2-story townhomes that were approved. And then subsequently, it was a 7-unit, 2-story, 3-bed, 2 cars, and then it included the plat that was approved in 2021. So this is the property. It contains a vacant single-family residence. It's primarily vacant. The adjacent properties to the east is the Tropic Bay condo, about 5-story buildings. To the west is our multifamily 2-story, and then to the north of Lamette is a single-family residence. To the south, a single-family residence with condos further to the south. The proposal basically involves modifications to the approved townhouse units, provide a more varied project. So in some instances, well, it includes 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath, 2-car garages, includes swimming pools now in the rear of each unit, minor modifications to the site configuration, change the architectural style to the Anglo-Caribbean architectural style. The units themselves, the building itself, it will include now a 3-story element for some of the townhomes, 6 of the townhomes, with the northernmost unit will be 2 stories. Just want to note that within the RM there are setback requirements on the upper floors, and we do comply, especially up to 30 feet on the side interior. This also involves relocation of an access easement. When it was approved, there was an access easement across each property right behind the rear doors. The proposal to relocate that to the 10-foot utility easement. With regard to required findings can be made with 3.1.1. With the Class 4, it's almost the same it's the same findings as you would with a Class 5. Land use map, again, RM zoning is compatible with the transitional land use designation. Multifamily structures and townhomes are permitted. Staff's report identifies that the project meets the adopted level for service standards as far as concurrency is concerned. And with regard to consistency, a finding of overall consistency can be made. With regard to the comprehensive plan, positive findings can be made. With the standards for site plan actions outlined in your staff report, positive findings can be made. The development proposal meets the applicable standards, and there aren't any concerns with regard to impacts in the surrounding area and the overall configuration and the building design. With regard to compliance with the LDRs, the proposal meets the applicable development standards. As I stated previously, the building setbacks have been met, open space, lot coverage, height, as well as the parking. However, we are requesting an internal adjustment to reduce the pool setbacks from 10 feet to 0 to 5 feet. And the location on the screen, the requirement is 10 feet, and internal to the site. So primarily to the perimeter of the site or perimeter of a property cannot be closer than 10 feet. And in this case here, we have 0 lot line townhomes. And so that area highlighted on your screen is where those reductions are. For lots 2 and 6, it's from 10 to 0 and 5 feet to allow 19 by 10 foot pools. And then on lot 1, the furthest lot to the south, to the left hand of the screen, is 0 to accommodate a 30 by 10 foot pool. With regard to the internal adjustment, positive findings can be made that such relief does not diminish the practical application of the code, and that granting the relief actually will result in a superior product. The reduction allows a more functional pool, rather than a splash pool. And each lot unit is separated by a 6-foot-high privacy wall that will meet, the pools will meet the state and local requirements. And these adjustments have been approved with other townhome projects in the past. With regard to the landscape findings, detailed in your report, positive findings can be made that the landscape plan complies with the objectives and standards of 4616. We do have our architects and landscape architect here if there are any questions with regard to any of these elements. With regard to the architectural elevations, we feel that, as you see on your screen, is totally different design than what was previously approved. We feel a significant upgrade, and that positive findings can be made with 4.6.18E 1 through 3, which are the criteria for the board's action. With regard to we did also include some renderings that shows that the actual landscaping as indicated on the landscape plan on the renderings for you all, to give you just a better perspective as you see those side units, the side street to the north. It's 2 stories, and then on the south side, that portion steps back up to 30 feet. There was a comment in the staff report. Our team has already addressed that with regard to that setback on the 3rd level, to ensure the columns are out of the setback, and then the eave does not encroach. And so we're looking for your support, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Mr. Gajanic for the city, please.
Hello again, board members. For you at this time is agenda item 9E. It's a class 4 site plan modification for the project known as Delray Isles Townhomes. So the location is 2800 to 2812 Florida Boulevard. Right? It's comprised of 7 already platted lots. Again, the plat went forward with the previous approval. Current use is single family residential and vacant. The land use is transitional, and the zoning district is medium density multifamily. These are some of the adjacent properties for context. On the north and the south of the subject property is single-family residential, and then directly across the street to the east is multifamily. And throughout that neighborhood, there is a consistent mix of the two. This is the subject property. Again, it's mostly vacant with 1 single-family home. I believe there is a demo permit in right now for that, so it may or may not have already been demolished. I'm not sure. Moving on to the request, again, it's a class 4 site plan modification, including landscape plan and architectural elevations, and an internal adjustment for a 3rd floor addition and modifications to the architectural design style for a previously approved 7-unit townhouse development. Background, SPRAB approved a class 5 site plan application for 7 townhouses, 2-story townhouses in 2021. A plat had been approved and recorded, establishing 7 fee simple lots. In 2022, a class 4 site plan modification was submitted, which is the application before you today, to incorporate modifications including a 3rd story on 6 of the 7 units, as well as a change to the design style. As the applicant referenced, on the plat there was an access easement that ran across the rear yards of all the townhouses. In order to accommodate the pools, they've had to relocate that. That was a technical note on the site plan, but they've already recorded that since the site plan, or since the staff report was published, so that technical note has been addressed. And the access easement is now located where it's shown on the site plan, rather than the previous plat. This is the previously approved site plan, and this is the current proposed site plan. For the most part, it is very similar. Some of the proposed modifications, again, include adding a 3rd floor on units 1 through 6, introduction of an Anglo-Caribbean design style. The driveways have been expanded to 18 feet in width, which is now the minimum sought after by the engineering division for row houses or townhomes. There have been some minor modifications to the landscape plan, minor changes to the building footprint, nothing significant. The width of each unit has not been modified, so the previous plat is still applicable. There's no replat that's needed. and then introduction of pools into the rear yard, which, as the applicant referenced, does require an internal adjustment because they do not comply with interior setbacks. This is the landscape plan. It's been deemed technically compliant by the senior landscape plan reviewer. There are street trees proposed on the north property line. There's a perimeter wall with landscaping on the exterior to help soften that and provide landscaping, as the applicant showed the elevations with the landscaping interspersed. It is a pretty significantly heavy landscaped plan, lots of lush planting. Speaking towards the internal adjustment, as referenced, the applicant is proposing a range of internal setbacks from 0 feet to 5 feet. That's specifically the interior lot lines between each townhouse unit. The perimeter of the development site, so adjacent to all the neighboring properties, they are providing the required 10 feet. Even still, the code doesn't really provide a reduced setback for townhouses, so in order to reduce it below 10 feet, they need to seek an internal adjustment, which you can approve in conjunction with the site plan. Important to note is there is accessibility to and from the pool on 3 of the 4 sides, so there's no risk of someone getting stuck and not being able to get out, etc. So that was nice to see. Speaking towards the design, as the applicant mentioned, they are proposing Anglo-Caribbean. It is significantly different from the previous design. There's lots of nice treatments that have been integrated into design that are customary with the style. It is a good execution of Anglo-Caribbean, and it's a style that is found throughout the South Florida region. This is the material and the color palette, and it's mainly stucco. It's a white building color. There's gray roof, and then light blue accent colors in the shutters. Technical notes, as mentioned, prior to site plan certification, the columns on the 3rd story of Unit C must be eliminated and are adjusted to comply with the minimum setback of 30 feet, something we noticed as we were drafting the staff report. Point here. Oop. So these columns right here are encroaching into the minimum required 30-foot setback for the 3rd story. Columns are considered part of the structure, so they cannot be located there. We've already been working with the applicant to resolve this. They've showed us something preliminary to address that. Unfortunately, I couldn't include it into the presentation before tonight's meeting, but I just wanted to point out that should you decide to approve this project, the only thing that would be different from what you approved versus what they would submit for certification is these 5 columns would not be there. It would just be the balcony railings. And then the other 2 technical notes, again, relocating the access easement, and then recordation and acceptance of a landscape maintenance agreement regarding street trees. The applicant has moved along with addressing both of those as we speak. Required findings for architecture, it's 4618. The board should determine if the plan or proposed structure is in conformity with good taste, good design, and in general contributes to the image of the city, et cetera, et cetera. And then required findings for a class 4 site plan. These have been detailed more thoroughly in the staff report. In general, it's consistency with the land use map, concurrency, evaluations, consistency with the comprehensive plan, and compliance with the land development regulations. Board options are to move approval of the request, move approval as amended, should you decide to make any conditions, move denial if you find that it is not consistent with any of the applicable criteria, or move to continue with direction. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? All right, and Mr. Costello, is there any rebuttal?
No.
Okay, so now we're at board comments.
Staff, no rebuttal or cross-examination?
No rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, just for the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thomas, we'll start with you.
The only thing I would like to add is what a great upgrade from what was originally approved. I like this a lot better. Other than that, that's all for me.
Mr. Baffer.
So I had a question about the internal adjustment for the pool. So it's an internal adjustment which is different than asking for a variance, right? It meets the code?
Correct. So it doesn't meet the code, but because it applies specifically to the space interior to a development site, they can request approval of it through the internal adjustment rather than a variance. So it's not impacting the perimeter of the site, it's the individual lot lines towards the interior of the development area.
So but we don't have to opine on the internal adjustment.
If you approve the site plan as is, you would be approving the internal adjustment.
It's not necessarily the same factors as a variance, but you would just have to determine that that's appropriate according to the LDRs.
And so just in the internal adjustment section in the LDR, it notes that the granting body must find that such relief does not diminish the practical application of the affected regulation, so that's the setback for the pools, and that by granting such relief a superior development product will result. So that's part of the consideration. That's on page 5 of the staff report. And then just when you do have a motion, whichever way the board goes, if you can add in, unfortunately we did not include the language, but we'll need to add in that the motion, however it is, includes the internal adjustment as proposed for the swimming pools, so that it's clear that that is included.
All right. Ms. Bordeaux?
I agree, it's a vast improvement with what was originally proposed, and I don't have a problem with the pools because it's individual units. It's not going to affect the general design or footprint or any of that, so I'm happy with it.
All right, Mr. Cohen.
No, I have no comments. So.
All right, Ms. Perez.
Yeah, I remember when this project came through before. So on the, let me see, it's north. I guess on the west side, what type of housing is over there? Is that multifamily? Is there going to be a wall, or what is
Yes.
that?
Go ahead.
There is a perimeter wall proposed, as well as some landscaping. I'm trying to find the aerial. I'm not sure offhand if it's single family or multi.
So it would be in the backyard, right?
Correct,
There's
yeah.
going to be. Did you say that there's going to be a wall? Or-
There's a perimeter wall around the exterior of the overall site.
And are those two buildings to the west, are they multifamily? Are they single-family houses?
Yes, you could see the fee simple lots on the townhomes, so they're multifamily, but yeah, they're 1 and 2 story.
Okay, I mean, I think the landscape plan is done well. And the only thing lacking is the landscape in the backyards. I believe is there overhead power lines back there, which limit what you can plant. And you have a 3-story building going up there, but I mean, if those property owners aren't complaining, then I guess it's okay. And it looks like they have some screening of their own, the neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any problem with the pools. I think that's fine. And that's it.
So, I have real concerns about this building. I live around the corner. I run by here. I don't like the 3rd story. I don't feel that it's consistent with the neighborhood. I'm a little, quite frankly, shocked that this is per code. I don't understand why that would be, since everything else around there is relatively low. There are some townhomes that are on the other side of Florida Avenue and a little south, and they're 2-story. So, and I don't like that it's all white. I don't think that the Florida Colonial is as evident as it could be because it's all white. I don't like the little port windows. I think they're too small compared to the size of the building. So I'm concerned. I think we're kind of at this we're at this position where we have this building that I think is too big for the land, and I'm not supportive of the project at all, at the way it is. So that's my view of it. But given what the board has said, I don't know if they want to have any more discussion. It's just, I just don't feel that it fits.
It does meet code.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yes, yeah, it meets code as far as height goes, FAR, square footage, density.
Are those round windows functioning? What are those round windows? I think they're a little out of place myself.
Hello, I'm Jose Obeso, architect, JJ Architects. I would like to say that in order to reduce the scale of the building, what we did is we actually started with the end units being 2 stories, and then it goes to 3 stories towards the center. That way the building is actually not so massive. So it's a kind of reducing the scale of it. And one of the items also that we're providing up in the 3rd floor, we're providing terraces where people can enjoy, the outside and exterior. So it kind of keep the scale down.
They had a question about the windows.
The windows.
The circular windows in the front.
I was just wondering if the round windows, is that for is there what room is behind those round windows? Is bathroom? Or?
Those are bathrooms.
Bathrooms.
Walk-in closets, and they are operable windows.
Okay.
And basically it goes with the style.
Like a nautical.
All right, and then I just wanted to say, Dana, they do have a lot of landscape in the front. You're not seeing it in this rendering, but they do have gumbo limbo trees and multiple sable palms also. So it's not as stark. This rendering is pretty stark, but they do have a lot of landscape going in there. Just
I mean, I wish that there's other examples that I've seen in the neighborhood that were Florida colonial or Caribbean, and they're white with like black shutters and black accents, and it looks a little more, gives it more interest.
I mean, in our end, we wanted it more subtle, not so.
The accent's not so accent.
Exactly.
And that just use the building as a background, just to recess it even more, to less, make it less imposing.
Sir, would you mind just introducing yourself for the record? I don't think.
Pardon? Oh.
Would you mind introducing yourself for the record? I don't think we've heard your name.
JO Architects, and also part of the architect team.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. I think as we build out Delray and we start doing infill, we're getting a lot of these kinds of big projects on small parcels. I think as a board, though, we have approved similar, bigger on smaller parcels. It was just not in our particular neighborhood. But I think it's consistent what we're seeing in terms of size for these small lots that are available. I trust our landscape architect to say that it's shielded by enough landscaping. So, and I think it's so funny when designers tell me that white is subtle. If you're going for subtle, you miss that mark. I'm okay with the white, quite frankly. I did have some concerns about the nautical portholes and such, but we're a seaside town, so I'm not very objectable to it. But overall, I think it's better than some of the cube boxes we've seen being plotted down in our residential neighborhoods.
And I totally agree with you, and that was one of the items that we tried to get away with. Not to do another modern building, but to do something that belongs to Delray. Because I always felt that Delray, I was supposed to have a Caribbean feel, and lately it has been anything but that. It's been everything's turning very modern.
And great.
Okay, any other comments? Would someone like to make a motion?
And just as a reminder on the motion, the addition regarding the internal adjustment, please.
I'm nowhere near ready. Anyone?
But something needed to be added, right?
Right, that's what
It's
Ms. Alvarez is saying.
You know, move approval, so on that, for example, if you were to move approval, not, it, at the end of the line, it says including landscape plan, architectural elevations, somewhere in there, including the internal adjustment as proposed for swimming pools.
Okay. All right. I move for approval of a Class 4 site plan application known as Delray Isles Townhomes 2023-27, including a landscape plan and architectural elevations for a third floor addition and modifications to the architectural style, including internal adjustments for the swimming pools for a previously approved 7-unit townhouse development located at 2800-2812 Florida Boulevard, by finding that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations.
Second.
Okay. Michelle, if you can please call roll.
Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Purdell,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer,
Yes.
Dana Adler.
No. Congratulations, you've been approved.
Thank you.
All right.
One more is on
All right, we got the last application. Ms. Rosenberg, if you can please enter the application into the record.
Good evening, Alexis Rosenberg, Senior Planner with Development Services. I'd like to enter into the record City Case File Number 2022-189, which is a Class 5 site plan, landscape plan, and architectural elevations for the construction of a 4-story mixed-use development located at 235 Southeast Avenue. We're here with Josh Nichols, who's the agent for the application.
Has there been any ex parte communication on this item?
No.
Okay, Mr. Nichols, if you can please introduce yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name for the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols. We're landscape architects and land planners in West Palm Beach, 1551 North Flagler Drive.
Have you been sworn in, Mr. Nichols?
I have. I was right in the corner here, so you got me. I jumped in right at the last second there. So thank you for having us tonight and save the best for last. So that was nice. Appreciate that. So this is, we've been coined as Valhalla Condo. This is at 235 Fifth Avenue. And I'll go through some of the items here. I have a few slides and we'll go into some detail, and then I'm sure we'll have some question and answer after that. So I'll kind of pause here on this first slide because this is a really neat rendering of the site where we have the tower feature. So this is seven residential condo units with a small retail component on the first floor, and those are required obviously by the CBD and the central core. So again, you see the breakup. I know we talked a lot about the white boxes, and so I was absorbing that as I was listening to the other projects, but I think this really does a good job at stepping back and creating those reliefs in that building so that you don't have the white box syndrome. Also, we have this staircase that's enclosed with glass on the corner to create this tower feature. And also, we're hoping, we had to pull it off of here for now, but since that feature, that orange copper color is actually wrapping around the elevator shaft, so that could be, because it's inside the building, it doesn't count as the public art, but we're hoping to do some kind of maybe faux artwork inside there so it creates a nice finish there. So that hasn't been fully determined yet. So moving forward, so again, the proposed site is on Southeast Fifth Avenue. It's across from the Aloft Hotel and condo. Let me zoom in a little bit further to existing site conditions. So this is currently utilized as a professional office. To our north is another office, as well as to the south and also the east. To the northeast is actually a gas station that's existing, and then Aloft is to the west. As you can see, one of the points I wanted to that I'll go back to is that there's an existing curb cut on Southeast 5th Avenue, and DOT was very adamant that our access was no longer allowed from Southeast 5th. So what we did, we were actually coming in off of the alleyway, and we're dedicating 2 feet there. So that was something we went back and forth with DOT quite a bit, and it also actually helps for the landscape corridor. So I'll show you some of that as we move through. So again, total site area, we're about 0.32 acres. The gross floor area between the 4 floors, with the first floor having very minimal square footage and mostly the parking, which we'll show. We're meeting the parking with required 17 and proposed as well. 7 residential units. It actually started as 9 residential units some time ago, and we've had to drop that to meet the parking. There's retail, so a little retail store on the first floor, and then again building height. So with all of these items, so these are permitted uses by right, and we're meeting or exceeding all of the code requirements that are required within the this central core. So this is the site plan. We did a color version of it to make it a little bit easier because there's a lot of line work and notes. So as you can see, again, access is from the alleyway. We've dedicated 2 feet there. So you can see the car coming in. It's a one-way circulation from coming in on the north. You circulate around and then go out on the south side of the alleyway. So we do have our ADA. We've also got the required EV charging spaces, as well as trash room and bicycle locker. There to the left on the screen, you can see the residential lobby as well as the retail, and then there's a building manager office and some of the other accessory components. As you move further to the left on the screen, you'll see the front promenade area where we have it started as an arcade, but it ended up more as a porch because we couldn't have this overhang into the right-of-way. So that was also a discussion we had back and forth between the city and also DOT. But what ended up is a nice promenade, like we said, where a large pedestrian area, and as well as you come up a couple steps and you're into the porch area. Now that is elevated due to the requirements of FEMA flood and having to raise the finished floor for the site. So that's the reasoning there. But again, having a continuous flow of landscape along the front was part of a lot of discussion with the landscape reviewer. Go to the next slide. So again, this is a similar view, just a daytime shot. So you can see where the landscaping is, again, removing that access point off of Southeast 5th from DOT. Again, you can also see some of the material change. So the louvers above each of the balconies is a faux wood, so it gives it a different color and a different texture, as well as on the side. You can see that horizontal louver systems on there as well. This is a rendering from the alley looking to the west. So again, on the second floor is a pool and amenity area. You've got the staircase there for emergency egress, as well as access to the units from the back. What you'll see on the rooftop deck, which we'll get into a little more detail, but there's 2 penthouse units on the top floor. Those have private access to the roof, and they have 2 separate terraces for those units. Ground level landscape plan. So as you can see here, the building really kind of steals the show. So there's landscaping though along the required buffers on either side, north and south, as well as on the east side of the property. So we do have all the required landscape there, and I can go into any detail as needed on those. Also, I think the main landscape upgrade though was really, again, when closing in that driveway on 5th, it created a nice corridor that FDOT was looking for, and they required palms to be added, underbrush. So all of that has been added to the plan as part of that negotiation with DOT as well as the city. Here's the pool level, so you can see the pool level with the spa, outdoor terrace area, and then obviously the second floor, that's the first living floor of the building. So there's 3 units on that floor, 2 units above that, and on the third floor would be 2 units as well, so a total of 7. Here would be the rooftop terrace deck. So this shows the raised planter bed, so it gives a little privacy between the two sides. You can see the again, the wood louvers over the area where the internal staircase comes up. All the air conditioners are on the roof and to the back and screened from the neighbors as well from those two patios. So I've incorporated that. And again, here's again a night rendering from the alley, just kind of showing the overall building. So again, I just wanted to stress, you know, we've met and exceeded all the land development regulations. We're under the FAR, below the max density. The uses are permitted and actually required by the Central Core. We've eliminated that curb cut, which the city was anxious to get, as well as DOT, and we have no waivers this evening, so meeting all the specs. So with that, I know you may have some questions. We're happy to answer them. We've got the architect here, the ownership team, and really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. And for the city, Ms. Rosenberg.
All right, good evening again. Going into the property information, as Mr. Nichols discussed, the property is a little over 1/4 of an acre. It's located on the east side of Southeast 5th Avenue, also known as South Federal Highway, and it's within the Central Business District, within the Central Core Subdistrict. The property is also located in Sub-Area 2 of the city's Community Redevelopment Area, and it's within the Downtown Development Agency's district boundaries. Going into the existing conditions and surrounding area, the subject site currently contains a 2,309 square foot office with associated parking. To the north of the property is a 1-story office with accessory 2-story apartment. To the west is the Aloft Hotel. To the south is a 1-story chiropractic office, and to the east is a multi-tenant commercial building. And here's a closer look at the surrounding buildings, again, mostly comprised of 1 to 2-story commercial structures with the exception of the Aloft Hotel across the street. The request is for the construction of a 27,135 square foot 4-story mixed-use building with 568 square feet of ground floor non-restaurant commercial space and 7 residential units, which are made up of 1 2-bedroom unit and 6 3-bedroom units. A porch with storefront frontage type is proposed along Southeast 5th Avenue with steps and ramps leading up to the covered walkway. So similar to other cases we've seen along streets that are owned by the Florida Department of Transportation, buildings can't encroach into the FDOT right-of-way. Therefore, the applicant's proposing a porch with storefront frontage type in order to provide a shaded walkway and not encroach into the FDOT right-of-way. And a waiver to the frontage type is not required with this application since the property does not face a street that's designated required retail. The existing access off Southeast 5th Avenue is proposed to be closed off, as Mr. Nichols explained, making the vehicular ingress and egress solely off of the alley to the east, which leads into a 17-space parking garage, which is just ground floor level. The improved alleyway connects Southeast 2nd Street to Southeast 3rd Street, and the property owner is providing a 2-foot alleyway dedication, which widens the alley from 16 feet to 18 feet. The second floor incorporates a rooftop terrace, which houses the pool and pool deck. Here you'll have a rendering of the rear of the building that faces the alley, which is across the street from a commercial plaza. Going into staff's analysis, as it relates to the land use map, the Central Business District is a preferred zoning district of the Commercial Core land use designation and permits general commercial and multifamily residential uses. The development also meets the concurrency of the Always Delray Comprehensive Plan. Because the site is less than 20,000 square feet, no civic open space is required. However, park impact fees will be assessed at the building permit level for $500 per unit. And as for traffic, the Transportation Performance Standards Letter from Palm Beach County, and the traffic impact analysis submitted states that the proposed development meets the TPS of Palm Beach County and will generate approximately 78 daily trips, with 9 of those trips being peak hour trips. Going into consistency with the LDR and comprehensive plan, the proposed development generally meets the standards, and there's no identified concerns related to the overall consistency with Article 3.2. The proposal is generally consistent with the Always Delray Comprehensive Plan, particularly with policies from the neighborhood districts and corridors element, the housing element, and the mobility element, which speaks to provision of diverse housing types throughout the city, also utilizing underdeveloped land for a mix of uses, and utilizing the alleys to dispense traffic to and from the site. Criterion D requires compliance with the LDR. So the staff report provides the required and proposed development standards, which include height, streetscape, frontage, lighting, and parking. And overall, the development complies with the applicable development standards for the Central Business District. Just a few things to note. The slide says the building height is 54 feet, but that's actually the maximum allowed height in the district. The proposed building is 49 feet to the top of the roof. It's 54 feet and 6 inches to the top of the parapet, and it's 60 feet to the top of the stairwell. But the code allows parapets to exceed up to 4 feet above the maximum height allowance, and allows elevator overruns and stairways to go up to 10 feet above the maximum overall building height. Therefore, the building's within the maximum height allowance. Going into landscaping, the project proposes Montgomery palms next to the 2 existing palms in the right-of-way, which serve as the street trees. I know Mr. Nichols went a little bit more into detail with the landscaping, so just to kind of brush on the second floor terrace, that incorporates a mix of Christmas palms, foxtail agave, cat palms, bougainvillea, and green island ficus, which are mainly situated at the north and south ends of the terrace. And the rooftop terrace, providing a private patio to each of the 4th floor units, provides a mix of natural plantings and synthetic turf. Clusia is provided in the raised planters along the central 4-foot high parapet wall, which separates the 2 patios. Regarding architectural elevations, the board should consider whether design is appropriate, in conformity with good taste, and is harmonious with the general area, and whether the project meets the intent of the Always Delray Comprehensive Plan. And based on staff's analysis, the proposed architectural design generally meets the minimum aesthetic standards in the code. The architectural style is identified as masonry modern, which is an anticipated design in the Central Business District. Just a quick side note, the project did come in prior to the recent ordinance being passed, so it does not have to go to City Commission aside from being on the appealable report. The Delray Beach CBD architectural design guidelines state that stone and wood details are often used to soften the stark modern forms of the building mass. Exterior finishes in the masonry modern language are typically stucco, with the color palette in Florida typically being comprised of whites and creams. The proposed development applies a smooth white stucco with some wood finish elements and uses the simple geometrics to emphasize the solidity of the structure. The building also incorporates a flat roof with an accentuated stair and elevator tower, which is an element of the masonry modern style. And the rooftop terrace on the 4th floor includes almost 1,400 square feet of synthetic turf, which is not counted towards the minimum landscape requirement. And based on the size of the building, green building certification will be required for this project. Going into the tower feature, the front setback above the 3rd floor in the Central Business District is 20 feet. However, the code does allow the board to provide relief from this section above the 3rd floor for vertical circulation areas if it's configured as a tower element and if it's consistent with the architectural style of the building. So the applicant is requesting approval for the portion of the tower above the 3rd floor that's in the setbacks. It's set back 11 feet from the front property line as opposed to the required 20 feet from the front property line. Also of note, Mr. Nichols also mentioned this, there's an interior art opportunity within the tower. So as it's proposed tonight, the tower is accented with the color Gusto Gold. However, the applicant does have the opportunity to install a mural or wall art, which wouldn't require additional board approval. And they have expressed interest in doing some form of art or a mural in there. The CRA reviewed this application at its March 10th report, and the DDA reviewed the application and recommended approval 5-0 at its March 13th, 2023 meeting. And the memo for the DDA is attached. Here are the technical notes, a little bit tiny, but they're required to be completed prior to site plan certification and prior to the issuance of a building permit. They enforce requirements such as finalizing the right-of-way dedication and also providing documentation to ensure that the project is green building certified. And here are your board options. I'll leave them up here, and I'm also here for any questions.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Mr. Nichols, do you have any rebuttal?
I do not. Thank you, Alexis, for the report.
All right. Ms. Rosenberg, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so we're up to board comments, and I think we're starting with Mr. Baffer.
Do you have a picture or rendering of the south elevation?
We do have the
There it is, right
elevations
there.
up there.
So I just think that south elevation is really bad. I mean, it's, if we're giving it a style, it's penitentiary style. I mean, I don't know what to call it, but it's just really, really bad. I mean, I don't know what can be done there, but something needs to be done. And then it's just, it's interesting to me that this building has a enormous enclosed stairway and then outside corridors. I mean, I don't really understand it, and I just think that from a appearance standpoint, I don't know where to begin. You know, I can't redesign it, but I just know that what I'm looking at doesn't fit.
Ms. Perdue.
I had a question. With the terrace up there on that 4th floor, I understand that you can have, your elevator mechanisms and things like that. Does that 4th floor terrace, does that comply with what we're saying we want on the 4th floors of these buildings?
So elevator shafts and stairways are allowed to go to the rooftop, and then there's not a pool proposed there, but it's just an outdoor patio, which is permitted as well to be on the rooftop.
Okay, because I thought we had some regulations about what on the 4th floor, what was allowed in patios, and is it under the height requirements and that's why it was approved?
So are you referring to rooftop uses?
Right, rooftop uses.
Or the rooftop terraces, which
well, the rooftop terrace.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that the terraces on the 4th floor have to be, or on any floor, have to be in the height limitations for that particular area. And is that because there is a solid, I'm looking at the thing here, on the deck there are some, it's not just a flat deck, there are some structures to provide shade or whatever.
So in the CBD there are different regulations than possibly the ones that you're thinking of, which so in the CBD we do have rooftop use limitations, which are for the extreme rooftop for the most part, and because we're anticipating everybody maximizing their height and of course wanting to use the rooftop.
Right.
But for these terraces in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels, those do comply. The building is set back. You can have outdoor terraces associated with whether it's residential or a commercial use, I guess, as long as there's no structure within that setback area. But as far as the height and their location within the building, yes, they're still delineating their stories and meeting their minimum floor heights that they need, and then their ultimate rooftop use area. I don't think they have. Do they have specific uses on the ultimate rooftop?
It's just the patio.
I don't recall. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually, if you look at one of the pictures, which is the west elevation, it shows that there's a covered area, on that one with the little umbrellas, there's a covered area up there. So my question is that covered area included or counted in the height restrictions? Because if it's over...
So that portion is the top of the stairwells that give the 4th floor units access to the top patio.
Okay,
so
that's not an area where that's providing shade, or they could put grills or any of that?
No, it's enclosed. Okay. And so, yeah, that's the portion that goes up to the 60 feet, but the code permits, if it's an elevator shaft or a stair shaft, it can go 10 feet above or up to 10 feet above.
I'm just trying to see if there's any other, because I thought I saw something that showed it more as a usable type
space
situation.
I think the umbrellas suggest.
Okay, as long as it's in compliance, that was my question.
There's a floor plan right there. So the private patio, that's on the top of the deck, but the raised area is the enclosed area. If you can see, it's a little faded, but that's where the stairs are that lead up to that area.
Okay. That was my question. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Cohen?
Yeah. This is sort of what we've been talking about with the masonry modern, basically block building that we've been trying to avoid. And, you know, I think I'm okay with it. I'd like to hear what my other board members say about it. But this certainly does move away from the village by the sea and more into the sort of modern, pretty built up. I mean, especially with the building across the street. You know, there's already a big masonry modern building across the street, and there's one further down. So this, you know, as far as in the tower, that's for access to the floors, or what is that a
Yeah, so the tower provides stairs, and then there's also, like within the orange, the elevator run that goes up to the top.
Oh, there's an elevator, of course.
And then there's additional stair access that's directly from the 2 4th floor units that lead up to the rooftop terrace.
And I agree with Benjamin about the south side. It looks pretty plain. But yeah, I guess I don't have much else to say about it. So.
Okay, Ms. Paris.
Yeah, I agree. The south side could use some more work, especially since on that south side you've got a little 1-story cottage on that side. I think that side can be a little more interesting, seeing that you're gonna see it from all over. And then I just had a question on the landscape plan. It was mentioned that you worked with FDOT and you're adding more trees out in the right-of-way, but that doesn't show on the landscape plan. The landscape plan just shows the 2 like beaches that are there. So is this the landscape plan we're approving, or are you adding more? Because when we approve plans, we're approving the whole thing. But see, there's only 2 palms.
Yeah, it looks like we're adding 3. There's 2 existing. We're adding 3 to that with ground cover, as well as what is that?
Within your property?
No, it's all in the right of way, required by DOT.
Okay, so I don't think that your landscape plan depicts that.
Yeah, I actually just want to make a quick correction because the one that I have in front of me does show the 3, so I might have accidentally not put that version on the PowerPoint.
That looks like an older version, yes.
But I do have the one that's in front of me has the 3 additional that I can show you. So I'll make sure, I'll double check what was included in the packet to see if that reflected that, but it should have.
Right.
And there's really no ground cover in there now either, so now it'll be upgraded, and there's Simpson stopper. There's also some Green Island ficus, so it'll kind of upgrade that whole median there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a theme going all the way down Federal, so you know, it should probably stick with that. I don't know if there's any Simpson stoppers in the theme for Federal Highway.
That was also a recommendation from the landscape reviewer for the city.
All right. Yeah, that's so. Yes, as long as we get that straightened away, and I do think that the south side needs a little more work. And that's it.
Chair, if I can.
Yes, please.
My apologies for interrupting board discussion, but just as part of the board discussion, I just want to make sure that you realize can you go to a front elevation, like a rendering? So the tower feature, there's specific criteria and allowance in the LDR for tower features where SPRAB may provide relief from the additional setback required above the 3rd story for building entries, lobbies, and vertical circulation areas. So they've provided this tower feature and it is encroaching, and so this should be part of your consideration. So I just want you to know and understand for everybody that as part of your consideration, you need to look at that also. Just because they're providing a tower doesn't necessarily mean that they automatically get the encroachment. But I just want to be clear on that.
So wouldn't that be a waiver, or what is it? Why isn't it a waiver?
It's not a waiver. It's a special provision for tower features to make them a feature, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's allowable under the code.
I did want to say I did appreciate the stepping back, along Federal Highway on the front elevation. I think it looks good, and it also kind of plays off of the Aloft Hotel too.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more on that. So the section of the code is there. So it's a little interesting because it doesn't necessarily say that it has to be through a waiver or a variance, but it does have to be a consideration of this board. So, so you guys do have the ability to allow it or not allow it. It just wouldn't be in the form of a waiver or a variance.
And it helps to add interest when appropriately executed, and I'm not commenting on what's before you. I'm just, in general, just to add interest to the buildings and provide that variation.
Okay. All right, I really like this project. I agree it's going to play well across from the Aloft. I like the tower feature. I love that you're going to have this really interesting palette of either color or mural or something that's going to be seen really 3/4, right? Because it wraps around. I think that's sort of what Delray's about, is that it's going to add that whimsy and that fun, even though it is masonry modern, which we're trying to get away from. And I love that it's stepped. I am also concerned, as with my fellow board members, about this south elevation. I'm wondering what's next to it, because we've brought this up before for other projects, but there was another building there, so it really didn't matter so much. So is that the case here? It's just a one-story cottage. It's next door.
Yeah, it's a one-story chiropractic office.
So that's certainly problematic in that case.
The only thing I could add, if I may, is we actually weren't able to put trees along that south side because the vegetation is so thick and the trees are so large there. So there's a very good buffer in place on their north and our south line. So not to say that it's going to block our entire facade, but there's significant mature trees right there. So
do we know the height of the trees?
They had, there's a picture, but if you go back one, it's the little blue building.
Yeah, you can't really see their north
You
property
can't really
there.
see the
It would be on the left side of the blue
left,
building.
yeah.
But yeah,
those
they,
look like palm trees, and which are, you know, they don't have a lot of branches, obviously. So.
and there's more canopy toward the street too, but you can't really see it. But again, it was enough to where our buffer requirement trees couldn't be placed there because those trees would compete and kill those. So that was something that we went over with the landscape reviewer.
Could you add, I mean, I don't know, what's happening, so the other renderings, I'm looking at the west elevation, that's the elevator shaft, right? So right now it's painted orange or yellow, or you're not sure? I'm just wondering, maybe there's room to replicate something on the outside in that south elevation?
Hi, Keith Beal, Curry Sauer Douglas Architects, 185 Northeast 4th Avenue, Delray Beach. I'm the principal in charge of the project. Just a couple things on the stair tower. Part of the masonry modern is a tower element, so that's enhancing our feature with the architectural style. The colors, we've gone back and forth. I think the owner wanted a little bit of blue. We had a little bit of artwork. We went with gold for our submittal, but we're still open to changing that on that side. What do you mean by bringing something more to the front? I guess I was trying
So I'm just, I think good design has some replication in it. So whatever is decided for the interior, maybe it can somehow be replicated. It doesn't have to be completely identical, but something that identifies that inside with the outside to add some interest, and I think might help us.
Some of the more interest, which actually isn't really represented very well on the rendering, is I believe it's on the 3rd floor that we have a large cutout so that there's actually a covered patio, so you're actually going to have some depth. Not everything is right out of the street.
Okay.
So there is some depth there added on the 3rd floor, and then obviously an additional setback on the 4th floor. We've already, taken that back as far as we can.
Right. I think we're just all talking about that south elevation, though.
That south elevation is a tricky side.
Yeah.
Limited by, one, the amount of openings we can have based on
Right.
fire code and everything like that. Can we look into adding some more artistic treatment or something on the exterior? I don't want to.
What about the stairs? Those are exterior stairs, right?
Correct.
So would you consider, we're not supposed to design from the dais, but just trying to address some concerns. What about doing the stairs in a color?
That could be entertained. We also have at nighttime, I think we are doing lighted rail
lighting,
up there.
yeah.
So the lighting rail, so it's going to be lit very well, and I think that nighttime rendering that shows on the west side kind of gives it, on the east side, shows a little bit more of that character that it has. There's one more with the pool area at night. That might have been on Josh's presentation, might not be on yours, Alexis.
All right, so I think we need to, again, as we did earlier, sort of take a temperature. Oh, you have more?
Well, we haven't spoken about
Oh,
it.
sorry. All right, go ahead, Ms. Craig.
I'm a little bit with Mr. Bafford on this one. It looks very much like another hotel across the street or a office retail as opposed to mixed-use residential. The vertical, are those blinds that are designed to, are they functional to close on the balcony, or are they just static?
You're talking about
brown.
the overhangs at the patios. Those are all really what we consider a shading device, which is something that, based on Florida Green Building certification, that's some of the things you're looking for is natural shading devices or physical shading devices.
I was actually thinking, what's this side?
That's
The one that looks.
that's the north side.
The north side.
The horizontal.
Right.
That's really a railing detail. That's really going to be a composition of metal and wood, or it could be possibly metal and aluminum that will represent wood, so that it's longer lasting. It'll stay look better for longer, but they're not functional in any way. No.
So I think your attempt, and I think I can see where you were trying to attempt to soften the building. I'm not quite sure that you were successful in doing that. Those treatments make that look a lot more commercial, makes it look a lot more hotel-y, office-y, kind of feel, as opposed to kind of a residential, softer look. Are those awnings, or is it just the lighting coming from the? Oh no, it's just the lighting. It's the lighting coming from the shade feature.
There are 0 awnings.
Right.
Everything is a hard shade structure.
Right. When you look at it a little bit closer, it looked like there are striped awnings under there, but
Gotcha,
they're quite
gotcha.
not. Right.
That's just the shadows, I think. you're picking up on.
I know your firm, and I know your firm do good work. I know, and I respect the work that you do, but in kind of my experience here and on the CRA board and DDA boards, sometimes I feel like when I push the architect or the designer to bring their A game a little bit better, we tend to get the second round is much better. And so right now I'm not comfortable with the design and the design feature, because I think the treatments are just too stark and too commercial. Those they're not functional. If you told me they closed and gave shade or something like that, then I would say, well, just do them in a lighter color, blend them a little bit more. But if they're designed to just be a treatment and soften the building, it's not working. It doesn't work. Now, I don't quite understand. So the staircase is glass, and so what you're proposing, the artwork would be visible during day and night?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yes, because the glass we're required to provide has to allow that visibility through day and night.
Gotcha. Yeah, as it stands, for those design reasons, I'm not a fan. There's a hotel there, there are other masonry modern. I think whatever goes into that space, into that corridor, doesn't need to mimic what's already there and overrun what's already there. I think it needs to bring together what's already there, as opposed to us continuing to approve that masonry modern, to have several masonry modern in that corridor, right? So I think we've approved 2 already. The hotel is there. We still have enough residential and single floor residential for you to be the blend between what's there already. And I don't think that this accomplishes that.
Okay.
Wait, Ms. Thomas, apologies. No, that's okay. First, for staff, really quickly, I thought that the tower feature had to be distinct enough to create a feature. I don't know how,
So
actually.
the code requires it, kind of like what you mentioned, it has to be designed as a tower or entry element. I think I might have the exact verbiage in the report.
Because previously we had it where it was, I felt like, or maybe I was mistaken for how my interpretation is after a couple of months of going back, that it had to be distinct enough to separate the building to the feature or the, am I mistaken?
Yeah, I have, but that's correct. So it has to be, in order to require relief or approve relief, it can be for building entries, lobbies, and vertical circulation areas configured as tower elements that are consistent with the architectural character of the building. So it would have to read as a tower feature and be harmonious with the design of the building.
And so just given that it's a continuous element through all 4 floors, and so we deemed it sufficient as a tower.
Okay.
It's just the board, of course, needs to take it further. Does it meet the intent of this? the intent of the design. Masonry Modern actually doesn't require a tower feature. Tower features are parts of many different types of design styles, as we've seen all over. But is the execution such that it meets the intent of Masonry Modern and the intent of the requirement to add some interest in the design to where you can allow the encroachment of that third story?
I personally think that the building needs something more for it to fit, and I understand that A-Loft is Masonry Modern and the IPEX there, and we have Caspian, and I'm on that street 100 times a day going up. I think with the size of it across the street from something that's large like that doesn't fit the way that it's presented to me.
I'm very familiar with the A-Loft Hotel. I was
Sorry,
with
sir.
the previous.
I don't know if she was actually asking
Oh,
a
I'm
question
sorry.
or
I'm
just
sorry.
still in the board
Yeah, okay.
discussion.
Thank
So
you.
Sorry.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I don't particularly think the way this is presented that it is beneficial to the neighborhood specifically, or how it appears. The tower to me looks like it's just a stairwell that's exposed. That's just what I'm looking at. And I like the positives of it. I love that there's some rooftop accessibility, and we have, I think that I guess I'm known a little bit for amenities, but I like those features. I like being able to walk outside and read a book at dusk, because we can't do that during the summer. But I like some of the features. I just don't like the tower, and I think it needs to be softer across the street from the A-Loft being so large.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Gray. I just don't want it to be unsaid. I do agree. I didn't address the tower and the fact that we're being asked to consider the tower. So I don't mean to omit it. I do agree that for me to grant an exception and or to allow as designed, it needs to be more impactful towards the building and the function of the building. So that's why I asked the question, and I think I just took myself off the train of thought because I was on the tower. What are you doing to that tower to make it warrant us granting that exception? And just lighting it differently, I just don't think that's sufficient. If we could do something that allows for the building to have more architectural interest, and it is then functional, and then you add the art, and then you wrap the art around that south building that we were talking about, and then we soften some of that wood feature with, the verticals, then all of that tied together would make for a different project. And I think overall that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, or even if the tower became more of a feature, I know it's like a redundant word, but if it was more pronounced than just looking like a glass stairwell, in my opinion. I think that your design is great. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Architecture is subjective, so yeah, I got you.
I just feel like there's something missing from this, and missing enough that I don't think it's going to be right for the neighborhood right there.
So I think we're at the point where it's most likely that if we did a motion for approval, it would probably fail. So perhaps we should make a motion to move for direction.
Yeah.
And then you can come back to us.
At this point, we've just asked kind of your consideration whether you'd rather have a continuation with direction and let the board kind of tell you what they're looking for, or if you'd rather them make a final decision, and then obviously the next step would be, appeal to the commission if you wanted to.
Well, it didn't come here for a no, so let's go with some direction.
Okay, great.
All right, so do we make a motion now, Kelly?
Yeah, I think maybe just kind of clearing up the things that you guys are looking for, whether it's
Okay.
greater
Yeah,
detail
so
on the south
think that
elevation or.
what I'm hearing from the board is that given the massive scale of the A-loft and given that it's masonry modern and you have certain stipulations to stay in that sort of genre, that there's more elements of interest and creativity.
Okay.
Whether it's the tower, whether it's the south side, whether it's adding some color, even the DDA, I think that letter asked for perhaps some different colors. So I think we're all sort of, our remarks are sort of pretty consistent, given that it's the main thoroughfare of the town, so.
Okay.
We have a real opportunity to do something very creative,
Okay.
and I think that that's what we're looking for. Does anybody else want to give direction?
I was clear?
I'm sorry.
I was clear?
You
heard
were clear.
me? Okay, good.
I'll move to continue with direction.
Second?
I'll second.
And Rochelle, if you could please call roll.
Allison Thomas,
Yes.
Stephen Cohen,
Yes.
Linda Perdeau,
Yes.
Annette Gray,
Yes.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
Benjamin Baffer,
Yes.
Dana Adler.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Right. Now we have reports. City staff, Ms. Alvarez.
Thank you.
I just have just a quick. Okay, so just a reminder of our upcoming meetings. July 26th is our next meeting. We do already have a full agenda for that night that we are anticipating, anyways. So just again, July 26th and then August 23rd. As always, and just keep us up to date. You all are very good at doing that, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Just always keep us up to date on attendance or not. And then I couldn't remember if we had already discussed this because our last meeting was May 10th, but the LDR amendment regarding CBD architectural styles. So any new projects that come in that are masonry modern or Art Deco will now require your recommendation to City Commission. So similar to the item we had earlier tonight where they were doing a different architectural style, those two styles as they come in will now be, for CBD only of course, are now required to come to you for recommendation, and then they would go to City Commission.
So we won't be making a decision, we would be making a recommendation.
Correct.
But for CBD only.
For CBD only, right. So those were really my only two updates, and just thank you all for your thorough and thoughtful conversations. It's just always interesting to hear when we do have items that you do really get into them, because we do the same thing as staff in the office and really kind of try to get through everything, and then to hear your additional input, we appreciate it. And we do consider it the next time a similar project comes in. We think, well, wait a minute, like the graying of Del Rey issue. We've started to tell applicants that, of course. So, but that was all.
Great.
I think it seems like a kind of a waste of our time to review plans and spend our time here volunteering only to make recommendations to City Commission. And I just want to go on record saying that.
Yeah, I think we've all said that in the.
I mean,
so
why bother? Maybe it should just go straight to them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let City Commission do it all.
Agreed.
But every time we send somebody back and say do better, they come back with a much better plan.
Yes, they do.
Right.
So, like that one tonight, he's going to come back with a much better plan.
Yes,
Just
they
know
do.
that he is.
Every single time.
Yeah, I
Every
agree,
time.
but I worry that sometimes we get a little bit too designy up here, like telling them. So that's what I grapple with.
Yeah.
I don't think it's, the way I see it, it's, we're supposed to look at the kind of broad view of it. We're not here to tell them exactly how to design the buildings. If they're going to bring us masonry modern, then I mean, we're going to have to approve them unless there's something wrong with them, you know. So that's my feeling.
And I think
supposed to fit inside the
Right, we
neighborhood
can
too,
look
like
at the neighborhood
area.
and the overall.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
And if there's like
And
5 buildings already and 3, and it feels like it's
41618 is that's half of our basis up here is our ability to look at all that architectural elements. You know, so.
And I think you have the design guidelines as well, so you do have some wiggle room in, you know, kind of talking about design elements and bringing out things further or that kind of stuff. So
I think the challenge is, you know, we're all professionals and trying to keep our opinions out of it and tying what we're seeing and our feedback to the guidelines, you know. We're all very well functioning, independent type paper so that sometimes gets a little hard.
And I
you know
think-
how many times I have to mentally check to say not my opinion or I don't like that or I mean there's a whole conversation going on in my head.
It's hard, but yes, it's helpful for I think both you all and staff when the language ties back to similar language that's in the specific criteria. You know, staff in our office used to say, well, staff feels this or that. There's no feelings in planning. Now, this is, does it meet the criteria or not? So, yeah.
What is the status on the review of the architectural styles? Wasn't there going to be some thought about maybe making some changes or additions or?
Right. So there were some preliminary discussions about that, but I think the result, at least for now, was to take these 2 styles through that route that I mentioned and not make any other adjustments at this time.
Okay, and I guess my question then is, if the criteria for masonry modern and art deco remain the same, doesn't the commission have to abide by the same things we're doing?
The commission has the same
if it meets
the same criteria, correct? It just sometimes an applicant, just as an example, an applicant may say, well, let me go ahead and I'll do Mediterranean Revival instead of Masonry Modern because I don't want to have to go through that extra step. I'll just go to SPRAB rather than City Commission. You know, that's one of the things that happens. Sorry, that's not the sole reason is to just discourage it, but it's to get that finer look or additional look on the style.
Well, it's procedural. It's like adding another step.
Right.
But
It's
I think
adding another
I
step,
think
but
what you're saying is that there's no substance. We didn't really change the substance of. We just
right. The
added
criteria did
another
not
procedure.
change. It's
So,
just the process, and
Right.
so you know it comes before SPRAB, and then you make the recommendation, and so it's just a higher level of review. Ultimately.
All right. So I think I just want to touch on that, what happened with the sign program today. So I think that it was a little surprising that it sounds like they got thrown. One was the owner, and one was the working for the sign company, and then she got thrown in. And it sounds like there was a little bit of a lack of communication all the way around. So I think
On the applicant side, some projects are so large that they have so many different moving parts. And so I think in this case you have a tenant and they've got multiple moving parts. And so they're requesting one thing, but yet other things have happened. So,
Right.
But all of those things need to be covered. I'm trying to not be specific, but you know.
Right.
But everything needs to be covered. And so that's how it had to happen. It was unfortunate, I think, on their part. Let me rephrase that. It's unfortunate when something comes before the board and then is removed from a request, but then later on comes back very similar as if nothing ever happened before.
Right.
But for us, when we get a request, and we have to process it, right? They've got due process. So telling the applicant, or in any case, hey, you might not want to do this.
Right.
Well, they can say, well, we don't care. We want what we want.
The hardest thing is the balance between, obviously I don't want to be wasteful on people's
Exactly.
finances or
Yes.
their efforts, but if it's not going with the betterment of the city and the development and the way it's supposed to look, appearance, site plan, then you can't. And so that was a little tough because I feel like the cart was before the horse and you have to do what's right, but you
Well, but in that case, in cases where you install something without approval, you've taken that risk. That ultimately, when you do get the approval, you may be required to change it.
Right.
And we've seen a whole range of things, from awnings to larger items, even windows. So you take that risk.
Yeah, and it's a property holder's responsibility to, know the code. And I think in any project, but especially in a project where you've got a large group of moving parts, them staying in communication, I think, is important. So, you can only do what you can do, but you just have to look at it like as if it was coming to you for the first time and you never got to, you never knew one way or another if it's like already installed or not. You gotta treat it the same as if it wasn't.
It's not right. It's not part of the consideration.
And that was good guidance.
Yeah, it was.
I think.
Thank you.
My initial reaction was like, you don't want it to burn? But sometimes you guys do rub off on me.
Well, for me, I kept saying I wouldn't have voted for this.
Yeah.
Why am I letting it?
Yeah. Because
Right.
you don't want to waste their money. You understand. But wasn't code, because like before when I was on SPRAB, like a number of years ago, wasn't code enforcement supposed to be checking on these things when things went up? And
Right.
because
Well,
we had a whole rash of them. It hasn't happened this time a lot. But
So just in general, again, so code enforcement doesn't always notice everything or know all of the ins and outs of all projects. Typically, it's either a resident making a complaint is the actual, okay, I didn't want to, okay, making a complaint, or staff might notice something. And in this case, staff noticed, hey, wait a minute. And so rather than just say, hey, development, or I'm sorry, hey, code enforcement, this development didn't do what they needed to
Right.
do. We said, hey, development, you need to do this.
I see.
And so, I hope I answered your question. I'm sorry.
Why we exist, because sometimes I do wonder.
Yeah.
But this is good. This is actually a good example
Yeah.
of being an intermediary
Yeah.
to sit and hear them through and find a compromise, which is what I think we did today. And I think we did that very well today. Given
Yes.
what we were working.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Kelly, you're up.
I don't have any comments, but great job today, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, no problem.
As always, thank you for your very hard work and your staff. Terrific, and thank you to the board.
Thank you.
And have a great summer.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you next time.
too.
be at the 26th.
Yes, of course. I need to know this.
My flyer. Chair, are we?
There you go.
Okay.